Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fanfiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
On the arena floor, Ino stood across from Kin, the Oto Kunoichi she had possessed in the Forest of Death. It seemed she wasn't the only one who remembered that encounter, and the results the situation had brought about, if the blood-chilling glare the dark-haired girl was leveling on her was any indication. Somehow managing to shake off the glare and accompanying killing intent, the Yamanaka heiress looked over her shoulder and spotted the reassuring smiles her teammates and sensei were giving her. A little ways down from her team, her own blue eyes met the deep sapphire pools that Naruto called eyes, and she felt a powerful sense of determination and will to never give up fill her. Though her clan specialized in the mind arts and reading people in general, she couldn't determine what caused the unusual feelings that overcame her. All she could come up with was that she didn't want to let Naruto down while he watched. She wanted to prove, not only to him, but to herself, that she wasn't weak, that she was capable of fighting for herself and those precious to her. The sound of Heiei clearing his throat brought her attention back to the match she was about to fight. Now then, the fifth match, Ino Yamanaka vs Kin Suchi. Are both competitors ready? A nod from both girls saw the sickly proctor lowering his hand and jumping back to a safe distance. Hajime. I've been hoping for this chance, said Kin. I can finally repay you for that cheap shot of yours in the forest. Not waiting to give Ino a chance to respond, the Oto Kunoichi quickly drew two Senbon and threw them towards her blonde opponent. Cursing under her breath, Ino barely managed to duck out of the way as the two needles passed over her head and embedded themselves into the wall behind her. As she was reaching for her shuriken pouch to launch a counter, a slight jingling noise behind her caught her attention. A quick glance over her shoulder revealed the source to be two bells tied to the needles Kin had thrown. Bells? She can't seriously be using that old trick, thought Ino in confusion before turning back to her opponent and throwing a handful of shuriken as a counter. She cursed again when Kin effortlessly sidestepped the throwing stars and threw another pair of needles at her. Drawing a kunai in response, Ino deflected the two needles, causing them to clatter to the floor at her feet. Before she could make another move, more jingling came from behind her. What the? Her thoughts were cut off as she suddenly found herself unable to focus or maintain her balance. Falling to her knees, she looked up at her opponent, only to find that she was seeing multiple, blurred images of the Oto Kunoichi. What is this? Genjutsu? On the balcony, Naruto frowned as he sensed the fluctuations in Ino's chakra. Damn, not good. Sakura turned to look at her blonde teammate. What is it, Naruto? That Kin girl uses some form of sound-based genjutsu. It appears to be similar in part to the effect of the melody arm, but it causes one to fall into an illusion instead of causing direct damage to its victim. So long as Ino stays under its effect, she's a goner, finished Naruto grimly as he continued to watch his fellow blonde struggle against the effects of the genjutsu. Sakura gasped at Naruto's analysis of the situation, a move mimicked by Ino's teammates when Asuma nodded in agreement with what Naruto had said. While the three of them tried shouting support to help Ino fight her way out of the genjutsu, Naruto closed his eyes in concentration as he tried to think of a way to help his fellow blonde. He knew that if anyone attempted to break the genjutsu for Ino, the girl would immediately be disqualified and Kin would move on to the finals, not a position they wanted to be in, as it essentially opened the door for Orochimaru to infiltrate the village even more than he already had. No, he had to come up with something that could reach Ino and encourage her to fight on, without actually interfering with the match itself. An answer came to him in the form of a dark, ominous voice speaking inside his mind. You could always flare your chakra so that little girls' pitiful sensor abilities can pick up on it. Naruto's frown deepened into a full-blown scowl at the voice of his tenant. What do you want, Fox? And why in the world would I actually listen to anything you have to say? A growl was the only sign of the Kyuubi's displeasure at Naruto's comment, but other than that decided just to say his piece and cut the connection with his host. I am merely offering a piece of advice so you will stop your insistent pondering. It's starting to give me a headache listening to your thoughts ramble on and on. Anyway, back to what I was getting at. Your chakra is unique in the fact that it is heavily young-oriented, something that has only happened a handful of times in the history of your race. This means that you possess not only a strong life force, but also strong life-giving chakra, making it so that anyone who comes in contact with your chakra or senses it will essentially have life returned to them, giving them a push to continue to fight. His piece spoken, the Kyuubi severed the mental connection he created and left his Jinchuriki to ponder on what he had said. Naruto's eyes widened slightly as his tenant explained his reasons for his rather strange suggestion, but the more he listened, the more things started to make sense in the genin's mind. He had noticed a few times when he had flared or called upon large amounts of his chakra that those around him seemed to get a second wind almost. Also, Jiraiya had hypothesized that his chakra had a unique quality to it that no one else's seemed to have. I suppose it's worth a shot, he thought as Ino tried to stand up again, only to fall back to her knees with 3 Senbon in her right leg. Come on Ino, you can still pull through this. Stepping up to the edge of the railing drew everyone's attention to the blonde as he closed his eyes in focus. Sasuke and Sakura shared a confused look behind their teammate, before glancing to their sensei, only to see him shrug while keeping his lone eye fixed on Naruto. Just as Sasuke was about to ask what he was up to, Naruto's chakra suddenly flared up around him, enough so that everyone could easily feel his presence, but not enough to forcibly break the genjutsu placed on Ino. Everyone suddenly felt stronger and more at peace as Naruto's chakra washed over them. They felt as if they could do just about anything so long as this feeling continued to fill them. The only people who didn't feel this sense of euphoria envelop them were the disguised Orochimaru and those that had had prolonged exposure to his foul, tainted chakra. The members of the future Konoha 12 were also having their own reactions to Naruto's chakra. Lee felt his flames of youth burning even brighter than they had before, while Tenten smiled and reveled in the unique presence around her. Out of the 3 of them, Naruto's chakra had the largest effect on Neji as he felt a lot of his aggression and anger leaving him. Memories of his life before his father had died flooded his mind and he shed a single tear as the memories continued to play over in his mind's eye. Shino's insects were at first going crazy at the exposure to such large amounts of chakra, but just as quickly as they started, they settled down and began to move about Shino's body as carefree as their wild brethren do every day. Hinata felt herself becoming more confident the longer she remained in the presence of Naruto's chakra. Kiba's animal instincts were screaming at him to follow Naruto wherever he may lead, because he was a true alpha, one that commanded respect by his very presence alone. A little ways down from Team 8, Shikamaru and Shoji couldn't help but relax despite their worry for Ino. The feeling around them made them believe that everything would work out in the end, and it would all be for the better. Sasuke and Sakura, having been exposed to Naruto's chakra longer than the others, weren't affected as greatly as the others were, but they still felt the sense of power and will to never give up fill them. Across the arena, even the mentally unstable Gaara felt the sense of peace wash over him as the voice of his mother became fainter and didn't cause him as much pain. What is this feeling? The red-headed Jinchuriki wondered as he slowly became more comfortable with the foreign feelings and began to relish the sense of completeness it brought to him. On the arena floor, Ino's growing sensory skills were almost being overwhelmed by the chakra Naruto was releasing. Just like when they were in the Forest of Death, the young heiress felt her chakra reaching out towards Naruto's, and this time, she let it. At first nothing seemed to have happened, but suddenly her world exploded as she felt her energy returning to her and her chakra levels skyrocketing. This power. It's incredible. Where did it come from, thought Ino, unaware that another person could now hear her thoughts. That would be me Ino, said a voice in her mind that sounded exactly like Naruto's. That's because it is me Ino. Before you start asking questions and trying to figure out what's going on, I suggest you finish your match so we can have a proper conversation about this. But to sate your curiosity for now, I think this link is kind of like your clan's telepathy technique, or at least something similar to it. Now finish your match and we'll continue this discussion once you've won. With that, Naruto's voice left her mind and Ino was dragged back to the present. She noticed immediately that the effects of Kin's genjutsu were weakened and the numerous copies of the girl were all on one knee panting slightly. Still confused about what she had just discovered, the blonde Kunoichi decided to end the match quickly and try and get some answers. Forming the ram sign and stopping the flow of her newly replenished chakra, Ino spiked her chakra to a level that surprised even her, Kai. Finally free of the illusion and seeing that her opponent was quickly recovering, Ino picked up the kunai she had dropped and cut the wire connected to the 2 bells. Pushing her advantage, the heiress moved in close to her opponent and pinned the girl down with the kunai poised to slit her throat. It was at that point that Heiei got over the incredible feeling being produced by Naruto's chakra and noticed the situation the two girls were in. Winner Ino Yamanaka, his voice seemed to bring everyone out of their individual reverie, with quite a few of them shooting glances at Naruto while Ino quickly made her way back to the balcony and made a beeline for her fellow blonde. Knowing the coming conversation was going to be pretty personal, Naruto moved away from his team and met Ino at the edge of the platform, out of earshot of everyone else. "Okay Naruto, spill," said Ino, managing to keep her voice at a whispered shout. "How the hell were you able to talk to me telepathically? And what's with your chakra? Why did I feel my own increase when I felt your chakra around me?" Naruto had to fight hard not to chuckle as Ino said all of this at speeds that should be impossible to speak, and all seemingly in one breath. "In order," he said with a small smirk, "I'm not quite sure how that happened, though maybe Hokage Gigi or your dad will know something about it. My chakra is apparently unique because it is highly yam-oriented, and to be honest I don't know a whole lot about what that implies, another thing to take up with my sensei and the Hokage I suppose. As to your last question, I can say with certainty that I have no idea why your chakra may have increased when exposed to mine. All I planned to accomplish with that stunt was to help give you a second wind and convince you to keep fighting. So what you're saying is that you can't give me any clear-cut answers, right?" deadpanned Ino, causing Naruto to chuckle sheepishly and rub the back of his neck. "I never noticed before, but he looks really cute when he does that," thought the blonde Kunoichi before Naruto's voice brought her out of her thoughts. "Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying," he began, "though I think we should definitely speak to the Hokage and your father about this. Even if they don't know what it is, they could probably give us a better idea of what to expect or what may happen in the future." Nodding in agreement, Ino began to make her way back towards her team with Naruto at her side. The two blondes' approach caught the attention of everyone on the balcony since they were curious as to what the two were talking about. As the two drew closer to their teams, all of the senseis and the Hokage had to stifle gasps at the resemblance of the two together, to another couple they had known. Though they were slightly younger, and they were both blondes, the two genin looked almost exactly like Naruto's parents had. Naruto's spiky blonde hair, sharp facial structure and broad shoulders was such a perfect match for Minato, it was almost unsettling. With the exception of her hair color, Ino could have passed as Kushina's sister when she was younger. Her long, cascading hair, slim athletic body and natural beauty were a fair match for Kushina. Walking together, it was almost like looking into the past for those who had known the two legendary ninja. "What was that all about?" asked Sakura once Naruto had rejoined his team. Taking up his position on the wall again, Naruto glanced down to where Ino was also being questioned by her team before answering. "Something happened during the match that affected both Ino and I. To be honest, we're not really sure what it was, so we plan on speaking to the Hokage and maybe Ino's father to see if they can shed some light on the matter. Until then we need to focus our attention on making sure the three of us make it to the final round." Though they wanted to know more, the other members of Team 7 agreed with the blonde and let the subject drop for now. Sasuke, however, had one final comment on the matter. "You know Naruto, if you want to be alone with Ino, all you got to do is ask. No need to go making up excuses like Kakashi-sensei." Naruto shot the dark-haired youth a mock scowl while Kakashi and Sakura snickered. They were pulled from their conversation by the sound of Heiei's voice. Sakura Haruno, the pink-haired Kunoichi, looked down at the sickly Jounin and only then did she notice the last member of the Odo team standing with him. "This is your final chance, report for your match or you will be disqualified." Blushing slightly as everyone looked at her, the young medic nodded and jumped down into the arena. "Now then," said Heiei before coughing a few times, "the sixth match, Sakura Haruno vs Zakuobumi. Are you both ready?" With two affirmative nods, the proctor raised his arm before bringing it down. "Hajime." "This must be my lucky day," said Zaku as he raised his one good arm and aimed it at Sakura. "Your teammate broke my arm, so now I'm gonna break you." Decapitating airwaves. Faster than she could have ever hoped to move during the academy, the medic in training dodged to the right of the attack and moved in to engage her opponent with taijutsu. Her strategy seemed to work. With only one arm, Zaku's abilities in close quarters combat were greatly diminished. Blocking a sloppy backhand with her right forearm, Sakura ducked inside her opponent's guard and delivered a powerful punch to his stomach. Gasping as the wind was knocked out of him, the foreign genin could do nothing as he was pushed back across the floor. Not letting up in her assault, Sakura drew a kunai and threw it at the recovering Zaku. Unfortunately, Zaku recovered faster than she anticipated and managed to deflect her kunai with one of his own. He wasn't, however, able to avoid the following explosion as the paper bomb wrapped around the kunai's handle detonated. The force of the blast sent Zaku crashing into the wall behind him, causing cracks to form from the point of impact accompanied by the sound of several bones snapping. Height stepped forward after that, his hand raised towards Sakura. That's enough, as the proctor deemed Zaku Abumi unfit to continue. The winner of the match is Sakura Haruno. Before anyone had a chance to applaud Sakura's victory, cackling came from the down form of Zaku. Everyone watched as the obviously injured genin pushed himself back into a standing position, allowing them to see the crazed look in his eyes. You think I care about winning some stupid fight? All I want is revenge, and I'll start by killing her. Extreme decapitating airwaves. Despite the damage done to his body, Zaku managed to lift both of his arms and force the last bit of his chakra into his jutsu. Sasuke, shouted Naruto as he leapt from the deck, already forming seals for a defensive technique. Sasuke wasn't lax either. Before the blonde had finished saying his name, the last loyal Uchiha was already moving to incapacitate the far-gone genin. Naruto finished his seals just as he landed next to his female teammate who had her hands clasped in the snake seal. Doton, Earth-style wall. Sueton, water encampment wall. Both Naruto and Sakura's cheeks swelled before spitting out a wide fence of water and stream of mud respectively. The mud from Sakura's technique rose into a thick wall of earth that took the brunt of Zaku's most powerful attack. As the wall began to crack in places, the water coming from Naruto formed a second layer of defense that dispersed whatever the earth wall couldn't stop. While his teammates defended themselves and everyone behind them from the attack, Sasuke made short work of Zaku. Coming in front the right, he knocked the Oto genin back into the wall with roundhouse kick. Catching him by the throat, Sasuke forced Zaku to look into his Sharingan eyes, trapping him in a genjutsu. The sound of a throat clearing brought all attention to the Hokage, who had moved to the arena floor in case he was needed. Excellent work Team 7, he said with a smile to the three young genin, you handled yourselves well in that situation. I only wish your actions hadn't been necessary. Nodding to their leader, the team of genin rejoined their sensei at the Hokage's silent dismissal. The Sandame's smile disappeared as he turned his gaze upon the Oto team's sensei, who still had a smirk on his face. As for you, the actions of your student are not tolerated within the walls of Konoha. The match had already been declared over and yet your student still attempted to kill one of our genin. Such actions could easily be seen as a declaration of war. Be thankful I do not act upon them. The smirk on Orochimaru's disguised face didn't even falter as he met the Sandame's gaze before silently walking towards the arena entrance, completely ignoring Zaku's unconscious form. Take the boy. And his teammates to Ibiki, the aging Hokage whispered to seemingly thin air, find out everything. You can. Unseen by anyone, a cloaked Umbu member followed after the team of medics that were carting Zaku out of the arena. I apologize for the display of force and aggression, Sarutobi said towards the three Chunin ninja, but as I said, acts of war such as that cannot be tolerated. Of course, Hokage-sama, we take no offense from your actions. You were simply acting in the best interest of your village, said Baki, trying to keep the subtle shifts of lies out of his voice. Truth was he was greatly disturbed by the show of authority and power from the legendary shinobi. The killing intent the old man had released as he addressed the Oto Jounin was unsettling, even if they were not the intended target. While it wasn't enough for him to doubt the success of their plans, it made him wonder what exactly victory would cost Tsunagakure. If Konoha's Kage, a man well into his 60s, still had that much power and drive, then how truly powerful was the village he led? Familiar coughing brought attention back to Height. Now then, with that dealt with, we can proceed with the next bout. On the back wall, the names of the remaining participants began to cycle across the screen again. While everyone's attention was on the board, a small spike of chakra across the room alerted Naruto. Turning to the source of the spike, the blonde censor found himself looking at the Suna team he had met before the exams began, only a certain redhead wasn't with them anymore. Looking down into the arena confirmed that Gaara had used his variant of a shunshin to move to the floor. Even at this distance Naruto could easily see the impatience in the boy's eyes, along with a strong desire to spill blood. Not good, thought the Uzumaki Namake's heir. Judging by that look in his eye, if Gaara isn't selected for the next match, he may just end up killing those who are to satiate his bloodlust, and if he is chosen, his opponent won't last 2 seconds against him. I just hope it's none of Gaara no Sabaku and Choji Akimichi. Please come down for the 7th match, said Hey-8, ending Naruto's thought process as the blonde immediately looked down the platform and saw Choji crouching down behind the rail, as if it would protect him from his new opponent. He may have wanted to help all of his friends reach their full potential, but now was probably one of the few times he was thankful for their inexperience. Choji had always been a kind-hearted person, if a little timid at times, so being paired off against the psychotic Suna Genin was bound to have an effect on him. I see I can't F-fight him, he'll kill me, squeaked the Akimichi heir as he tried to hide his wide girth behind a rail post. Shikamaru was standing behind his childhood friend and he couldn't agree more with that statement. Just by looking in his eyes one could tell that Gaara was someone who didn't have much regard for human life. Come on Shoji, said Asuma as he leant over the rail next to his rotund student, if you quit without even trying, you'll never gain experience. Besides, if you win, I'll treat you to an all-you-can-eat buffet. Shoji's ears perked up at the mention of a buffet, but before he could react the typical Akimichi way, someone else voiced their opinion on the matter. That's cruel Asuma, and you know it. The members of Team 10 turned to find Naruto standing with his arms crossed and a frown on his face. You might as well be offering him his last meal in this lifetime. If he fights Gaara now, he will die, plain and simple. Ino and Shikamaru's eyes widened, realizing that their worry for Choji was soundly based. Asuma, however, narrowed his eyes at the blonde genin, refusing to believe his claim. Now look who's passing judgment without proper knowledge, he said, his voice holding a low growl to it. Behind Naruto, the other Konoha ninja present looked slightly shocked by the bearded Jonin's words. The genin could easily see that Asuma was throwing Naruto's words from earlier back at him, but the Jonin and the Hokage saw something deeper. They saw a man with a wounded pride, who wasn't going to let anything else wound it any more than it already was. With his mind clouded as it was, Asuma was completely unaware of the truth of Naruto's words. You were right earlier when you said that the other senseis and I didn't know the depth of yours, Sakura's and Sasuke's skills. The same applies to you, you don't know what Choji is capable of, so don't assume to pass such judgment on him. Naruto's eyes hardened. You're right, he said, catching Asuma off guard momentarily. I don't know what Choji is really capable of, but I know enough about his opponent to pass fair judgment. Oh, and what exactly do you know about the boy? Questioned Asuma, sure that Naruto was just trying to make himself seem better. He was proven wrong though, as the next sentence that passed the boy's lips caused his blood to run cold. He is like me. Why, you mean, he is a... Yes, someone who has been lost to his inner darkness, cut in Naruto, preventing the Hokage's son from unintentionally violating his father's law. Ino spoke up before anything else could be said, asking the question all of the young genin were thinking. What do you mean he's like you, Naruto? You two are nothing alike. You're kind-hearted, sweet, nice, caring, everything that guy's not. I've been taught to read people ever since I can remember, and the only thing I can see from that guy is that he is a mass-murdering psychopath. He's a demon in human form, Naruto. He's nothing like you. Be quiet, Ino. The sudden enraged cry from the normally calm blonde startled everyone. But none were more surprised, or more hurt, by the Jinchuriki's cry than Ino. Sure, Sasuke had snapped at her and his other fangirls more than once, but the sting she felt in her heart when it came from Naruto hurt her in ways she couldn't explain. Reining in his emotions like he had been taught, Naruto noticed that Ino had tears in the corner of her eyes. I'm sorry, Ino, he said, trying to force the memories Ino had brought forth out of his mind, but you're the one who's wrong. Gaara and I have more in common than you will ever know. Looking to the still crouching Choji, Naruto offered one last piece of advice before moving back towards his worried team. You are my friend Choji, I do not want to watch you die any more than Shikamaru and Ino do. It's your decision, but remember whatever you choose will affect others as well. As he was walking past Team 8, Kiba stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. I don't know how you knew about that guy, but you did the right thing. If Choji had fought him, he would have been killed for sure. The only sign that Naruto had even heard the feral genin was the short nod he gave before continuing on towards his team. Slumping slightly against the wall, The blonde gave his teammates and sensei a weak smirk before closing his eyes and attempting to meditate. His attempts were halted as a cold voice that had an undertone of madness in it sounded from the arena floor. Uzumaki, eyes snapping open, hardened sapphire locked with volatile seafoam green, you stopped me from proving my existence with his blood, so I will prove it with yours. Sand began to flow out of the gourd on the redhead's back and move across the ground towards the viewing platform. All of the Konoha Jonin tensed, ready to intervene if the need arose again. Across the room Baki was silently cursing his students' impulsive actions while Tamari kept switching between worry for her little brother and fear of the demon within him taking over. Naruto however surprised everyone by answering with a voice that was just as cold, now is not the time Gaara. We shall have our battle that I can assure you, but it shall be during the finals. I can feel your desire to prove your existence, and what better way to do so than in front of hundreds of people, watching as you prove yourself, acknowledging who you are. The sand that had begun to climb the wall stopped. It wavered a few times, showing the debate that was waging in Gaara's mind. Finally, it slowly began to retreat back into the gourd Gaara was carrying with the Sunagen and sealing it with a cork once all the sand was inside. With one last stare down between the two Jinchuriki, Gaara disappeared in a sand shunshin and reappeared next to his sister. Letting out a slow sigh, Naruto looked to Hayate. I apologize for all the delays, Hayate-san, but I believe there are still 3 matches to be held. Right, said the Yell Jonin as he cast a glance to the Hokage. Receiving a nod, he addressed the assembled teams. Since Choji Akimichi withdrew from the match, Gaara no Sabaku is the winner. Now we will begin the selection for the 8th match. The names of the 6 remaining genin flashed across the display screen for a few seconds before finally settling on the next 2 competitors. Will Shikamaru, Nara and Tenten please come down? An audible sigh resonated from the Nara air. Troublesome, my match would be the one to be moved up, wouldn't it? He asked before lazily making his way to the arena. Down on the floor, Tenten scowled at the apparent disinterest her so-called opponent had for their match. If it wasn't for the fact that the men of the Nara clan were known for their chronic laziness, she may have mistaken. Shikamaru's lack of enthusiasm is a veiled sign that he didn't consider her as being worth the effort to fight. Go Shikamaru, show them who's boss, shouted Choji, all traces of his previous fear gone. Next to him, Ino was giving her own support to the 3rd member of Team 10. Hayate stepped forward between the 2 Konoha genin, silencing the spectators. The 8th match, are both fighters ready? A sharp nod from the bun-haired Kunoichi was followed by another sigh from Shikamaru, causing many of the Konohanin present to sweat drop slightly. Shaking his head, the sickly proctor raised his hand before swiping it down and jumping back to a safe distance. Hajime. I have no idea what kind of technique she uses, and she most likely knows about mine from Lee. But it's all I got, thought the pineapple-haired genin as he formed the sign of the rat and extended his shadow toward Tenten, shadow imitation jutsu. His assumption was correct. It seemed as Tenten was already making a tactical retreat before his shadow had even covered half the distance between them. Shikamaru frowned in concentration as he began thinning out his shadow as much as possible to help increase its reach. It was all for naught though, because with one last jump backward, Tenten skidded to a halt in front of the arena statue, just out of the shadow's range. The almost needle-thin shadow wavered for a few moments, evidence of the Nara's attempt to extend it further, before returning back to its owner. So there is a limit to how far that shadow of his can reach, thought Tenten as she took note of the distance. 10 tiles, I should be fine so long as I maintain that distance. Nice technique you have there, but now that I know its limit, it's pretty much useless to you in this fight. Knowing that if she didn't do something to deter him, he was more than likely going to attempt to close the distance between them and ensnare her with his shadow, the budding weapons mistress reached into her hip pouch and produced a single yellow scroll with pink borders. Now it's my turn, and I never miss my mark. Not good, mumbled Shikamaru before Tenten jumped high into the air, the scroll unfurling and spiraling around her form. Her rotation soon picked up speed, blurring the scroll trailings into a pink and yellow twister. The next thing he knew was a literal hail of metal flying towards him as Tenten unleashed a barrage of weapons from her scroll. Cursing under his breath, the lazy genin rolled to his right to avoid the first wave of weapons, only to be forced to jump back lest he be impaled by the second wave. This continued for a few more moments, with Shikamaru barely managing to dodge Tenten's relentless assault. Finally the assault ended and Shikamaru was given a small respite. Ceasing her spin, the weapon's user gracefully landed on her feet across from her fellow genin, a small sea of weapons separating them, not allowing much room for either of the two to maneuver. "You're faster than you look," commented Ten while reaching into her pouch again, "but now you have no room to dodge. Make this easier on both of us and surrender." The lazy genius stuffed his hands into his pockets and shifted his weight onto his left leg, completely relaxing his guard. "Yeah, giving up would be better than continuing this troublesome fight," he relented, causing most of the other genin to gape at his laziness while his team and sensei sweat dropped. "But my mom wouldn't let me hear the end of it if I didn't at least try, and she's more troublesome than these exams." Dropping to a knee again, he brought his hands up into his family's signature hand seal, "So I'll just have to win." "And how exactly do you plan to do that? Your shadow can't reach me at this distance." The smirk that found its way onto Shikamaru's face caused Tenten's eyes to narrow. "What are you smirking about?" Her answer came in the form of a blinding flash of light that forced her to shield her eyes lest she go blind. After a few seconds that seemed to drag on, the light finally dimmed before ceasing altogether. Ten opened her eyes, blinking away the spots in her vision caused by the light. When she could finally see clearly again, it was to find Shikamaru with that same smirk on his face. It was then that she noticed that she couldn't move her body. "Shadow imitation jutsu, complete," said Shikamaru as he stood back up and lowered his arms, with Ten copying his movement. "How did you catch me? I was out of your shadow's reach." He tilted his head down to allow his captive to see the floor and understand just how he had managed to catch her. "You may have been out of my shadow's usual reach, but I can also use pre-existing shadows to help increase its range." Sure enough, the shadow that connected the two together had passed through the shadows cast by the many weapons that littered the floor. "But how? There is no way you should have been able to thread your shadow through the ones cast by weapons like that normally." "You're right, normally the shadows cast wouldn't be big or dark enough to use this way, but that's what the flash bombs were for. They temporarily enhanced all of the shadows, as well as slightly increasing the range of my own shadow. All that was left to do was weaving them together and attach it to yours." Reaching into the shuriken holster on his right leg, Shikamaru pulled out a few shuriken and held them at the ready to throw. Unfortunately for Ten, she didn't have any kind of holster attached to her thighs, so even though she mimicked the Nara Air's movements, she was left unarmed and at his mercy. "I'm not the type to harm women needlessly, so just withdraw and don't force my hand." The bun-haired girl struggled against the shadow's hold for a moment, attempting to break free so she could counter. Her efforts were for naught, however, as the shadow's hold remained firm. Closing her eyes in defeat, she felt her head turn so that she was facing "Hey, I forfeit." Her words were barely above a whisper, but still clear for all to hear. Hey nodded and raised his right arm towards Shikamaru, winner of the 8th match, Shikamaru Nara. Since neither competitor was seriously injured, the medical team didn't even bother making an appearance, allowing the two to return to their teams. Guy and Lee immediately set to work on trying to reassure Ten about her loss and get her mind off of the fight. Shikamaru, on the other hand, was welcomed back by Ino and Choji's cheering, along with a few strong pats on the back from Asuma. Naruto smirked as he watched his fellow deadlass stumble from the strong blows from his sensei. I get his strategy, but how the hell did he manage to set off flash bombs effectively while they were still in his pouch? Looking to his pink-haired teammate, he found her with a furrowed brow, looking intently down at the arena floor. Beside her, Sasuke was smirking in a way that just screams, "I know something you don't," which earned him an occasional glare from the kunoichi. Because they weren't in his pouch, Sasuke and Sakura looked over towards Naruto, one with a knowing smirk, the other a look of confusion. The entire time he was dodging Tenten's attacks, he was dropping a few flash bombs onto the floor. He knew that Ten would be too focused on him to bother observing the results of her attack close enough to notice a difference. After that, all he had to do was trigger them with a burst of chakra. "Isn't that right, Shika?" he called down the walkway. Shikamaru gave him a lazy smirk, letting everyone know Naruto had been right in his analysis. "How the hell did you know he did that? There is no way you should have been able to see all that with Ten flinging weapons everywhere." The blonde genin chuckled as Sakura continued to try and pry information from him. He knew that she hated it when others noticed things that she didn't, and she had a tendency to try and force information out of them. The sound of the screen beeping drew everyone's attention. The moment the members of the Rookie Nine saw who the two combatants were, all noise ceased, replaced by an almost otherworldly silence. Their attention shifted to the two who had been chosen, one wearing a look of resigned indifference and the other on the verge of a mental breakdown. For a moment, they all hoped that this was just someone's idea of a cruel joke. Sakura and Ino even tried to subtly dispel any genjutsu that had be affecting them. It was all for naught, however, as Hay-8 brought the reality of the situation crashing down on them. Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Hyuga, please report for the 9th match. Hinata felt her heart stop for a few moments, before slowly starting to crumble as reality began to set in. She had been selected to fight against the one person she admired more than all, the one person she could never bring herself to harm. But fate had decided to show its hand once again and strike another blow to her already fragile self-esteem. When the exams had first begun, she had been nervous and had to constantly rekindle the courage she had found to keep going. However, ever since the preliminaries had begun, that courage had slowly dwindled down. With every match that passed, she began to feel more and more pressure on her shoulders. Both Kiba and Shino had won their matches, and the skill displayed in the other matches had started to make her question whether or not she was up to the task of winning, or even holding her own. Now though, the dwindling amounts of courage she had managed to keep up till now had just been ruthlessly extinguished. The mere thought of fighting the person she cared for the most was causing her more pain than she could have possibly imagined. Down the platform, Naruto had his eyes closed as he processed this surprising turn of events. He knew better than most that the moment the second exam ended, they were on their own. There were no teams in the final stage. They could be forced to fight anyone, whether they were from their home village or even their own teammates. But not once did he consider the possibility that he would end up fighting Hinata of all people. Though the matchup itself was surprising, it wasn't necessarily an unwelcome surprise either. He had been planning on helping all of his fellow genin improve themselves in one way or another, and this match provided him with the best chance he was liable to get to help the Hyuga heiress. His mind made up, the dual clan heir replicated his fellow Jinchuriki's actions from earlier and silently shunshin down to the floor. The sudden movement forced Hinata out of her thoughts. Pale lavender met sapphire blue, and almost as if she were in a trance, the Hyuga heiress began to make her way down to the floor. Kurenai looked on with a mixture of surprise and pride as her surrogate daughter moved to stand opposite of Naruto. She could only imagine the amount of pain Hinata was in, and still the young teen was determined to at least stand her ground against the one she cared about. "She has come far," thought the red-eyed beauty with a small smile. Her smile quickly disappeared as Kiba slammed his fists onto the railing. Damn it, why did she have to be paired off with Naruto of all people? "Isn't there anything we can do to stop this?" Akamaru whimpered from inside his master's jacket, voicing his own concerns for the kind-hearted Kunoichi. "No, Kiba, there isn't." The feral genin opened his mouth to say something only for Kurenai to cut him off. "Look, I know you're worried about Hinata, I am as well, but the rules of the Chunin exams are absolute. No one, not even the Hokage, can prevent this match from occurring, and even if there was a way to potentially stop the match, we would have no grounds to contest it. Naruto and Hinata are not related in any way to one another, they're not even teammates. If we tried to protest the match, we would simply be ignored. The only way for this match not to occur is for one of them to forfeit, and the likelihood of either of them doing such is slim. Naruto because, well, from what I know of him, it's just not in his nature to give up, and Hinata, no matter how much she may want to forfeit, won't allow herself to show weakness in front of Naruto." Her gaze shifted from the frustrated Inuzuka to the match that was soon to begin. All we can do now is hope she finds the strength to persevere through this. "Do not fret, young Inuzuka," said the voice of the Sandame. All of the Konoha shinobi on the platform turned to see their leader with a grandfatherly smile on his face. "Hinata-chan is in good hands, that I can assure you. In fact, I can think of no better opponent for her than Naruto-kun." "What do you mean there's no better opponent? Can't you see that having to fight Naruto is killing her on the inside?" "Kiba, that's..." "It's quite alright, Kurenai," interrupted the aged Kage. "He is merely doing what he feels he must to prevent his teammate from being harmed, an admirable endeavor if there ever was one. But what you must understand is that Naruto-kun has always acted in the best interest of others, helping them get past their demons. Isn't that right, Kakashi? The masked Chunin nodded. Hi, Hokage-sama. Even during our first C-rank mission, Naruto was able to change the views of Zabuza Momochi, and ultimately turn the man into our ally before his death. The ability to change others for the better, it's like a special power of his, one more powerful than any technique. Indeed, said the Hokage, focusing on the two genin about to square off, that is why you have nothing to worry about Kiba-kun. Even if it looks like he is being harsh to her, Naruto-kun will only do what he feels he must to help Hinata-chan get past her insecurities. And should he succeed, Hinata-chan shall be a better person because of it. You must have faith, Kiba-kun, faith in your teammate and faith in your fellow shinobi. Hokage-sama is right, Kiba, said Sakura, walking over to join Team 8 and Team 10. Naruto really can change people for the better, Sasuke and I are proof of that. It was Naruto that helped me start taking my kunoichi training seriously, and he also managed to get Sasuke to stop being an emo brooder. Despite his worry for Hinata, Kiba couldn't help but laugh slightly at the jab to the last Uchiha. Believe me, if there is anyone who can help Hinata, it's Naruto. With Naruto and Hinata same time. I must say, I never expected that I would end up fighting you, Hinata, said Naruto as he crossed his arms over his chest. Hinata fidgeted slightly under his gaze. Neither did I, Naruto-kun. Looking between the two genin, Hey-8 raised his hand once again. Are both fighters ready? Naruto gave the briefest of nods, while Hinata fidgeted even more, though she managed a weak nod as well. Then the ninth match, Hajime. Before we begin, there is something I would like to say. The group of genin watching the fight perked up at that, wanting to see how the blonde planned to help Hinata. Why are you here, Hinata? What do you plan to accomplish? I wanted to prove that I was strong, she mumbled, stay strong enough to stand on my own. To those that knew her, they were surprised when Hinata's stuttering lessened as she spoke. Naruto smirked, but on the inside he was preparing himself for what he had to do next. Then why haven't you attacked yet? The question caught the young heiress by surprise, if her wide eyes were any indication. Hayate-san has already begun the match. Instead of simply listening to me, you could have taken advantage with a preemptive strike. Why haven't you? Light dusting of pink spread across Hinata's cheeks, causing Naruto to mentally sigh. It seemed her infatuation with him went deeper than he first thought. I could never hurt you and Naruto-kun, she said, her stutter returning full force. I guess I have no choice, thought Naruto before he did something no one could have seen coming. With speed that shocked his fellow genin, he rocketed forward and delivered a powerful kick to Hinata's torso. It was only thanks to pure instinct that she managed to raise her arms in an attempt to defend against the sudden attack. But it would do her little good as the momentum behind the kick knocked her off her feet and sent her tumbling along the ground. Coming to a painful stop at the base of the wall, Hinata shakily forced herself onto her hands and knees. Looking up into the eyes of her crush, she saw the one thing she had hoped to never see from him. His warm, welcoming sapphire eyes had darkened over and become a cold, spiteful violet. Fight me, Hinata, just like his eyes. His voice had changed as well, his tone colder than ice and his words sharper than any blade. It was almost too much for the Hyuga heiress to take. The way Naruto was acting was exactly how her father used to treat her before he started ignoring her in favor of her sister. And no, she gasped out, cringing at the pain she felt in her arms. Despite her pain, she managed to get back on her feet. I won't fight you and Naruto-kun. Then forfeit, he snapped with such venom that even Sasuke flinched from it. If you are not willing to fight me, then you are just proving that your father was right about you. Tears began to swell in the corner of Hinata's eyes as Naruto's words slowly began opening up old wounds. You are weak, Hinata, you haven't changed at all. No, you're wrong, she cried, fighting back the tears that threatened to escape. I have changed, I've gotten stronger. Then fight me, prove to me that you have changed, that you have gotten stronger. I can't fight you, Naruto-kun. At this, Naruto sighed before reaching behind him and unsealing the katana he had used against the Oto team. Up in the stands, Sakura, Lee and Team 10's eyes widened at the sight of the blade. Naruto may have only used it for a single strike in the forest, but that was all they needed to see to know that the blonde was no novice when it came to wielding a blade. I'm not giving you a choice in the matter, he said, turning his gaze onto the sickly proctor. Hayate-san, from one swordsman to another, I ask that, No matter what you see, or what you hear, you will not interfere in this match. Surprised at suddenly being addressed, Heiei looked to his Kage, not knowing whether he was permitted to allow such a request. Hiruzen closed his eyes as he contemplated whether or not to permit such an action. He knew the young blonde well enough to know that Naruto would never do anything that could prove potentially fatal or detrimental to his comrades' futures. But he also had to consider the possibility of Naruto's plan failing. If that were to happen, then it could possibly have disastrous effects on the mental state of young Hinata. In the end, however, he didn't have much of a choice at all. Naruto had already begun the mental game to crack Hinata's exterior. Trying to prevent it now would be pointless. Opening his eyes, the Sandaime gave a nod of affirmation, one that was mirrored by the ill swordsman. Very well, I swear on my blade that I will not interfere in this match unless there is no other option. Naruto nodded in appreciation while the man shunshined to stand with the Hokage and watch the match unfold. Before Heiei had even appeared on the observation platform, the blonde Jinchuriki was already moving to engage the Hyuga heiress in close quarters. Easily slipping past her guard, he swung his sword in an upward slash, aiming to remove Hinata's left arm from her body. Again, Hinata owed thanks to whatever instincts were guiding her body as she managed to avoid serious injury. Her left arm rose straight into the air while her right came around with a palm thrust that changed the angle of the attack. Instead of severing flesh, the katana merely cut off a strip of her jacket's sleeve. Naruto couldn't help but smirk at the move. Her reflexes are good, and her instincts seem to favor minimal movement when dodging or countering, allowing for quick follow-ups. She has the potential to become a deadly close-ranged opponent. She just needs to learn to channel her instincts at will. Breaking away, Naruto skidded back a few feet before stabbing his sword into the ground and forming hand seals. His cheeks began to swell before he let loose a powerful torrent of water at Hinata. Suetun, water bullet jutsu. Hinata's body seized up as the elemental attack barreled down on her, her instincts fleeing. Throughout the entire match, she had been fighting an internal battle, trying to convince herself that Naruto didn't mean any of what he was saying, that it was all a lie. But now, watching as his technique quickly closed the distance between them, had forced her mind to accept the harsh reality of the situation. She was weak. She didn't have the strength or the power to compete with her crush, not on this level. Closing her eyes, resigned to her fate, she waited for the jutsu to finish its task. Time seemed to slow as the water came ever closer. Just before it came within striking distance, a soft voice spoke in Hinata's mind. Prove them wrong. The voice, so similar to her own, whispered, "You know you are not as strong as you thought, but now that you admit it, you have started down the path of becoming stronger. Now take your first step, my dear, the first of many." Why, you're right, chakra began to slowly seep into her eyes. I want to become stronger. I want to prove I am a worthy kunoichi. Eyes snapping open, Hinata's Byakugan flared to life, determination shining in her the lavender orbs. Faster than she had ever moved before, Hinata spun to the side, letting the jet of water pass harmlessly by. Slipping into the Juken stance, she dashed forward, ready to prove herself. I will show them what I am capable of. Her first strike came faster than Naruto could react, her fingers finding their mark on his side. The blow disrupted his chakra flow into his jutsu, forcefully ending it. Hinata didn't let up in her attack though, landing multiple more blows along Naruto's body. Thanks to her Byakugan, she saw another Naruto appear behind the one before her, sword in hand. Thanks to her natural flexibility, Hinata was able to bend backwards to dodge the swing that bifurcated the shadow clone she had been attacking. Righting herself, she spun around and threw an open palm at Naruto's exposed back. Using the momentum from his swing, Naruto spun around and knocked Hinata's arm to the side with the flat of his katana. The kunoichi recovered quickly though and immediately moved to attack again. For his part, Naruto was able to defend quite well against the feared Hyuga taijutsu, dodging or deflecting the strikes with his own naturally defensive taijutsu. On the viewing platform, the members of the Rookie Nine couldn't believe what they were seeing. Hinata, the shy, meek and timid heiress, was fighting with a ferocity that could be compared to any beast. The fact that it was Naruto of all people she was fighting, only served to further astound them. "Is that really Hinata?" asked Ino, her eyes wide as she watched the fight continue. "Yes, it is." Everyone turned to see it was Shino who had spoken. "Hinata-san may not be the most outgoing at times, but she is strong in her own right. Short way down the platform, Niji scowled at the bug user's words. You're wrong, Hinata-sama is a failure. Once a failure, always a failure. No one can change their destiny, no matter how much they wish to. She's slowing down, thought Naruto as he continued the deadly dance with Hinata. Her chakra is almost depleted, yet she's still fighting on. You have truly proven yourself today, Hinata. Even if you lose, you have nothing to be ashamed about. In a flurry of wind, Naruto disappeared, only to reappear behind Hinata and deliver a single chop to the back of her neck. Before succumbing to the blissful grasp of unconsciousness, she heard her blonde crush whisper behind her. Well done, Hinata, you proved everyone wrong today. A small smile spread across her face as she fell limp in Naruto's arms. Hayate appeared kneeling beside the two, and after confirming that Hinata was unconscious, stood and raised his arm towards Naruto. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. Standing with Hinata in his arms, the blonde genin shunshined back up to the platform and laid Hinata against the wall. Akamaru jumped out of Kiba's jacket and stood at Hinata's side, reminiscent of a guard dog. Chuckling at the white pup's loyalty, Naruto stood back up and began making his way to stand with the other males of Team 7. Naruto, glancing over his shoulder, Naruto saw Kurenai with a small smile. Thank you for what you did for Hinata. She will become a better kunoichi because of it. Nodding once, Naruto continued down the platform, taking back up his spot on the wall. His fellow genin were looking at him in a new light. No longer was he the loud, brash and obnoxious dead last they knew in the academy. Now he was a calm, collected and calculating shinobi, someone to be valued as a comrade, and feared as an enemy. The 10th match, contenders please step forward, said Hayate, before another coughing fit hit him. YOSH. Finally I can fan the flames of my youth, shouted the over-eccentric Lee before he leaped over the railing and landed in front of Hayate. Temari smirked at the display, certain that it meant her opponent was just another Konoha whack job with no real skill. If you are both ready, receiving 2 nods he raised his arm, then the 10th match, Hajime. You should go ahead and forfeit now, save yourself the humiliation, said the Suna Kunoichi. Never, said Lee, assuming the opening stance for the Goken, such a thing would only dim my flames of youth, which is something I cannot allow. Using his superior speed, Lee launched himself at the blonde kunoichi, jumping into a spinning roundhouse kick, leaf whirlwind. Bringing her fan to bear, Temari angled it so Lee's kick would hit the edge and cause maximum recoil damage. Just as she predicted, Lee's ankle collided with her fan full force, but instead of the crunching of bone she expected, the sound of metal hitting metal reached her ears. What? Despite her surprise, Temari retained enough sense to use her fan and force Lee back. Is he wearing weights? Flipping and landing on his feet, Lee once more assumed the Goken stance. Her reaction time is good, I will need to be faster to get past her defense, he thought as the two stared each other down. Alright. If a direct attack won't work, then perhaps this will. Taking off at high speed, the bull-haired genin started circling his opponent as nothing more than a green blur. Fast, thought Temari as the green ring began closing in on her. Damn, gotta give myself some more room. The wind mistress opened her fan partially to reveal a single purple moon. You may be fast, but nothing is faster than the wind. With a swipe of her arm, she produced a strong gust of wind to blow Lee away. Her plan worked, somewhat. The powerful winds managed to push Lee back a few feet, but other than disrupting his pace for a brief moment, had little effect on the Konoha genin. What the? How the hell did that not work? Those winds were strong enough to lift a full-grown person off their feet. Just how much weight does he have on? Her thoughts were halted as Lee jumped above her and came down with a heel drop. Closing her fan, she brought it up with both hands and blocked the attack. What she didn't expect was for Lee to bring up his other leg and sandwich her fan between the two. In an impressive display of strength and acrobatics, Lee twisted his body around, throwing the large fan away. Landing in a crotch before Temari had a chance to react, the green-clad genin swept her feet out from under her and delivered a devastating punch to the girl's stomach, slamming her into the ground. Her eyes bulged as she coughed up a little blood before falling still, the darkness taking her. Hayate walked over and knelt next to the unconscious form of the blonde Suna Kunoichi. As if I have to check, he thought before looking to Lee, noticing that the taijutsu user didn't even look winded. Smirking slightly, he stood up and raised his arm towards Lee. Winner, Rock Lee. Putting his pipe back into his mouth and lighting it, the Sandame smiled. Finally, it's time for the main event. Well, with this, the preliminary rounds for the third exam have been completed, declared Hay-8. Soon after, all the genin who had won their matches were standing before the Hokage and the proctors for all three exams. To all of you who won the rights to compete in the third stage of the Chunin selection exam, congratulations. Stepping back, Hay-8 looked to his Kage. Well then, Hokage-sama, if you would please. Yes, said the Fire Shadow. Well, I will begin by explaining the rules for the main event. As I told you before, in the main event, your matches will be seen by everybody. Civilians, nobles and daimyos will travel from far and wide to watch you compete. Each of you will be fighting to represent the strengths of your countries. I'd like you to show off your powers with no reserves. Which is why, the finals will be held 1 month from now. Wait, we're not going to have them right now, asked Ino, voicing everyone's thoughts on the matter. No, this break, you can say, will be for preparations. What do you mean by preparations? Asked Niji. In other words, in addition to informing all the various daimyos and kages, this is the time needed to arrange for the gathering of the event, and this is also the preparation time for you competitors. Enough with your pointless riddles, said Gaara, his patience running thin. Get to the point already. Naruto tensed as he felt a small increase in the demonic chakra emanating from the redhead. He's getting more restless. At this point, anything could set him off on a rampage. Once this is over, I need to speak to Hokage Gigi and Jiraiya sensei. If the interruption bothered him, Sarutobi didn't let it show. Basically, it's the preparation to get to know your enemy and yourself. It's the time period where you will calculate your chances of winning by analyzing the data you accumulated during the preliminary competition. The battles up to now had you fight as if you were in an actual combat situation with the assumption of fighting an unknown opponent. Taking his pipe from his lips, the aged Kage blow out a cloud of smoke. However, the final exam will not be like this. There are those who showed all that they can do already to their rivals, and there are those who competed that are severely weakened. To make everything fair, the 1 month should be used by all of you to advance and improve yourselves. Of course, it'll be fine to rest your body as well. Anko took that as her K to step forward, a wooden box in hand. Alright, you brats, each of you will draw a number from this box. The numbers will dictate the brackets for the final tournament. Moving down the line of assembled genin, she allowed each to draw a number before returning to her place before the Hokage. Now read off your numbers and my partner will mark it on the bracket. Number 8. 2. 5. PFT, 9. I've got 1. Yash, 3. 4. 10. 7. Troublesome. Quit being lazy, Shika. I'm 6. With a few more marks on the clipboard he was holding, Ibiki showed it to the Hokage, before turning it so the genin could see their opponents. 2 gasps broke the otherwise tense silence as the Chunin hopefuls began sizing each other up. Well then, I see many of you are already formulating tactics. With this I'll dismiss you all, but are there any final questions? Yeah, I have one, said Shikamaru. At the Hokage's nod, he continued, since it's a tournament, it would mean that there's only one winner, right? Which would mean that only one person can become a Chunin, doesn't it? Smirking at the inquisitive mind of the young Nara, the Hokage answered, no, that's not quite it. There will be judges, including myself, the Kazekage, and other various lords and daimyos that will make mission requests, and other ninja leaders, who will be watching the final exam. Throughout the tournament, these judges will be evaluating your abilities. Those judged to have the necessary qualities of a Chunin will be able to become Chunin, even if they lose their first match. That means that it's possible that everyone here will become a Chunin, asked Sakura. Yes, but also there is the possibility that no one will become a Chunin, he said, making sure the young Kunoichi understood the flip side of the coin. Advancing in the tournament means that you will have more chances to appeal to the judges. Do you understand, Shikamaru-kun? Yeah, drawled the lazy genius. Geez, what a big hassle. This is so troublesome. Very well then, thanks for all the effort you exerted for these preliminaries. You're all dismissed until a month from now. A squad of Umbu is waiting to guide you out of the forest. Good luck to you all. Smiling once more at the assembled genin, Sarutobi shunshined out of the arena and towards the Hokage Tower. "Hold on," said Naruto as he placed a hand on Sasuke and Sakura's shoulders. Receiving a nod from the two, he concentrated for a moment before the three disappeared in a flurry of wind. Up in the stands, Kakashi smiled to his fellow jounin before sunshining out as well. It's time to put those three through some real training. Training Ground 7. Shortly after leaving the tower, the entirety of Team 7 appeared in their training ground, two of them looking slightly woozy. "Damn, that's gonna take some getting used to," said Sakura, holding her stomach to try and ease it. Sasuke's pride wouldn't allow him to say he felt the same, but the look on his face told everyone just how he felt. "Hee, sorry guys, the shunshin is usually much smoother than that, but I'm not used to having passengers along for the ride." "That aside," began Kakashi, drawing their attention, "you all have some strong adversaries in this tournament, so we'll be pushing your training to the limit and continue working on ridding you of your weaknesses. Now, we'll start with..." "Before we get started, Sensei," interrupted Naruto, "there is someone I think you should meet." Turning to the forest surrounding the training ground, Naruto shouted, "Come on out, Erosenin, you're not fooling anyone." "Erosenin," thought the other members of Team 7 with a deadpan. "Damn it, Gaki, how many times do I have to tell you not to call me that?" said an irritated voice. Kakashi's lone eye widened at the familiar voice, while Sasuke and Sakura shared a look, having an idea of who the owner of that voice was. Their answers came as a tall man with long, spiky white hair walked out of the tree line, his form seemingly appearing from thin air. "Oh, get over it, I only call you Erosenin when you're off doing something perverted. And don't try and deny that you weren't, you only use the transparent escape jutsu when you're spying on women." Jiraiya, no doubt about to try and defend himself, shut his mouth, confirming Naruto's claim. "Anyway," said the self-proclaimed super pervert, "I hope you don't mind me dropping in like this, Kakashi, but I thought you'd like a little help with your brats." "Not at all, Jiraiya-sama, I would be honored to have your assistance," the silver-haired jounin said with a small bow of the head. Refocusing on his three students, he picked up before Naruto's interruption. "Now, most of the other competitors will more than likely be training with their families for most of the month, so they won't spend a lot of time together as teams, but we're going to do things a little differently." "How so, Kakashi-sensei?" asked Sakura. "We will be doing both individual and team training. It is important for a shinobi to be talented as an individual, but the philosophy that Konoha was built upon stresses teamwork above all else, and I intend to follow it. So, for 4 days a week, you all will train on your own, the other 3 we will meet as normal and train together. Jiraiya-sama, I believe it's safe to assume that you will be training Naruto during this time." He got a nod in response. "Alright, Sasuke, you'll be with me those days, working on increasing your proficiency with your Sharingan. Sakura, I've made arrangements with our top medics so you'll be training with them when we're not training together. You 3 have inherited the legacy of Team 7 and it is your duty to uphold it." "Legacy? What do you mean by legacy?" Naruto and Sakura nodded in agreement with their teammate, wanting to understand what Kakashi meant by that. Jiraiya, however, beat the cycloptic jounin to the punch. "He means that you all are the newest generation of Team 7 and it is your responsibility to live up to the expectations that come with that title." The 3 genin just gave the white Sannin a blank look. Perhaps a little history will help you to understand. After the village was founded and the system of 3 genin to 1 jounin was established, the designation of Team 7 has always been given to the team that has the greatest potential. The first Team 7 was Sarutobi-sensei and his advisors, Hamura and Koharu under the Nidame Hokage. I and the other Sannin would later become the next Team 7 under Sarutobi-sensei. I myself had the honor of leading the 3rd generation of Team 7, the team your father was a part of, Naruto. As you guys know, my team was under Minato-sensei as Team 7 as well, and now the title has fallen to you. Even if the civilians of the village are ignorant to it, many of the elite shinobi who know of the tradition expect great things from you 3, and I know you will live up to those expectations." The 3 genin stood that much straighter at the faith their sensei had in them, while Kakashi and Jiraiya smiled at the look that appeared in the eyes of the 3. Now that they knew of the legacy they carried, they were determined to not only live up to it, but to surpass all those that came before them. "Right then, today will be our first day of individual training. Sasuke, Sakura, you 2 come with me, I'll show you where you'll be spending your time training. Naruto, meet back here tomorrow for team training." Bidding farewell to their teammate, Sasuke and Sakura followed after Kakashi, leaving the blonde with his godfather. "So, is there anything in particular you want to start with?" asked the Toad Sage, crossing his arms over his chest. "Yeah," said Naruto, "a nice chat with Hokage Gigi." Jiraiya raised an eyebrow in mild surprise but conceded nonetheless. With a quick half-ram seal, both student and master disappeared in a swirl of wind and cloud of smoke respectively. Hokage Tower. Hokage's office. Hiruzen stood at his office window, overlooking the peaceful village of Konohagakure. He sighed as the face of his wayward student appeared in his mind's eye. "Orochimaru, even as a child, malice and ambition have always been hidden in your eyes. I always knew it was there, but I could never have imagined my inaction on the matter would lead to the current situation." Pushing aside the memories of his past mistake, he turned to greet the two who had appeared in his office. "Naruto-kun, I had a feeling you would be coming to visit me soon, and it seems you brought along my old student Jiraiya, so good to see you both." "Same to you, old man," said Jiraiya with a half smirk. "I'll admit I may have only come to town to do some research for my next book, but this reunion is a nice surprise." "Humph, I take it you know of Orochimaru's presence within the village walls." A short nod from the sage confirmed it. "Then I can also assume you will assist in defending the village when the time comes?" "Yeah, he will, but that's not the reason for this visit," said Naruto, stepping forward and pulling out the ninja info cards he had swiped from Kabuto before the first exam. Sliding the deck to the Hokage, he allowed the Kage to examine one before getting to the heart of the matter. "I believe there is a spy among our ranks." "A spy, you say?" "That is a very serious accusation, Naruto-kun, but given the events that have occurred, it is likely true." "Do you have a suspect in mind?" Naruto nodded, and pulled out single card from the deck. A quick burst of chakra revealed the information it carried. Kabuto Yakushi, a genin of Konoha, he was the one who created this deck and collected all of the information held within. Most of it is classified information that would normally be found on a ninja's personal file, such as mission history and skill levels. It also appears he recently accessed the files on all of the genin from my graduating class, as he knew that Sakura was training to become a medic nin, even though Kakashi-sensei only added that information to her file the day before the exams began. Setting down the cards he had been looking over, the Sandaime picked up and examined the card containing Kabuto's own information. "I see, these cards alone are reason enough to have him executed for possessing classified village information, but are there any other reasons you believe him to be the spy?" "Not the spy, but a spy. I believe his entire genin team is an enemy plant." "Go on," said Sarutobi, placing the orange card aside. "Kabuto's teammates, Yoroi Akato and Misumi Tsurugi, each possess a unique ability that I have never seen or even heard of before. Also, Kabuto himself possesses incredibly large chakra reserves, almost enough to match Kakashi-sensei. He is also capable of suppressing his chakra to the point where even natural sensors like me wouldn't be able to notice unless we were specifically looking for it, something that requires an incredible degree of chakra control well beyond that of a normal genin." "I see. Thank you for bringing this information to me, Naruto-kun. I'll take care of things from here on. In the meantime, I recommend you focus on your training. By the time these exams are finished, I expect you to prove yourself a worthy Chunin. Before I go, there is one more thing you need to know." At the Fire Shadow's nod he continued, "The Suna genin, Gaara no Sabaku, I believe he is a Jinchuriki, and an unstable one at that." Sarutobi widened his eyes before closing them and rubbing his forehead. "This is troubling. There is only one reason I can think of for a village to send its Jinchuriki into another." Refocusing on his surrogate blonde grandson, the Hokage put on his best grandfatherly expression. "You have done well, Naruto-kun. You're dismissed for now. Put these thoughts out of your mind for the time being and focus on your training. Jiraiya, I will need to speak with you later on to discuss some important matters." The blonde Jinchuriki offered a small bow in respect to his leader before sunshining out of the office, Jiraiya not far behind. Sighing once more, the Sandaime sent one of his Umbu guard to inform the council to report for an emergency meeting. It seems things are escalating quickly. Preparations must be made to ensure Konoha survives the storm that is nearing. With Naruto and Jiraiya. The two appeared on the edge of a river being fed by a waterfall just outside of the village walls. Dense forest lined both sides of the river, obscuring anyone's view of the tranquil clearing. The current state of the area, however, brought into question that tranquility. Cracks and small craters littered the rocky bank, evidence of the intense training that had taken place there. Alright Gaki, before we get started on training, I want to see how far along you've come since the last time we trained. Naruto nodded and jumped away from his godfather, landing on the other side of the bank in a loose taijutsu stance. Mimicking his student, Jiraiya slipped into his own stance. The two stared each other down for a few minutes, the wind softly whispering around them. A single leaf fluttered down from the treetops, gently swaying to the whim of nature. It landed softly on the surface of the river, creating a small ripple in the calm waters. Both Naruto and Jiraiya leapt from their perches, clashing above the flowing river. The Toad Sage calmly blocked a kick with his left forearm and retaliated with a palm thrust to his godson's torso. Knowing Jiraiya's strength was far greater than it appeared, Naruto used the man's arm as a fulcrum to spin himself out of the way while at the same time bringing his other leg up and delivering a powerful axe kick to Jiraiya's skull. Jiraiya reverted back to mud before falling into the river and slowly being carried downstream. Cursing himself for not noticing the difference, the blonde genin began looking around for the Sannin as he fell back down to earth. His chakra-coated feet had barely touched the surface of the water before an invisible force hit him square on the cheek, sending him crashing onto the rocky bank. You should know by now that your eyes can only aid you so much in battle. There are times where you have to utilize all of your senses to track your enemy and defeat them. Getting back to his feet and wiping away the blood from the corner of his mouth, Naruto closed his eyes and focused his sensing abilities to find his elusive godfather. A task that proved far harder than some would expect. For all his blatantly perverted tendencies, Jiraiya was not considered the world's greatest spy master for no reason. In addition to his extensive network of informants, that spanned the entirety of the elemental nations, the man himself was a master in the arts of stealth and espionage. Despite his tall frame and massive reserves of chakra, Jiraiya was capable of completely removing any trace of his presence from an area in a matter of seconds. Eyes still closed in intense concentration, Naruto's head snapped up as he felt a small presence coming at him from above. He managed to roll to the right just before a decent-sized crater appeared where he previously was. Stopping his movement with his hands, the blonde spun around and swept his leg at the space above the newly formed blemish. His aim was true as his kick collided with what felt like an arm, but his attempt to counter was foiled when he felt a hand grab onto his ankle and throw him back across to the other side of the river. Righting himself in midair, the blonde pulled out a handful of shuriken and loosed them in the general area he felt Jiraiya's presence. I may not be able to pinpoint his location, but widespread attacks should be effective enough to slow him down. Flashing through a few hand signs, the shuriken multiplied into dozens. A faint curse reached Naruto's ears, proof that his strategy had had the desired effect, forming two clones to keep up the barrage of weapons. The original Naruto clapped his hands together in preparation for his next technique. He had never considered his lack of techniques that had widespread effects a weakness, but now he was being proven wrong. I hope this works, thought Naruto as he channeled his chakra to form the one thing that could help him. 10 glowing, golden chakra chains erupted from the Jinchuriki's back, each tipped with a lethal spearhead. The chains wavered in the air slightly before 8 of them encircled Naruto and his clones, crisscrossing each other and stabbing themselves into the ground, forming a small defensive barrier. The 2 remaining chains hovered above the impromptu barrier, their spearheads twitching this way and that in search of their prey. Jiraiya stood behind the blonde and his clones, watching the development continue to unfold. So he finally managed to gain enough control to utilize the chakra chains in combat, though it seems to take quite a bit of effort to maintain and control them. And indeed it did appear Naruto was having difficulty with the technique. He had only manifested the chains for a few moments, but already the signs of exhaustion were making themselves known. His breathing was labored, and he seemed to be fighting to maintain his balance. Also, the intense focus he needed to maintain the technique seemed to leave him unable to utilize any of his other skills. We'll have to work on that during the month. A technique like that is of no use if it prevents him from using other abilities at his disposal. Though it looks like he found a way to counter that weakness to an extent, smirking slightly at his student's ingenuity, the invisible sage prepared for the oncoming attack. Inside of the protective barrier, Naruto felt his control of the chains beginning to wane. Damn it, manifesting this many chains at once still takes a lot out of me. I better make this last move count. With a silent command, his two clones began to sense for Jiraiya's presence again. The clone on the left glanced behind them, before dispelling in a cloud of smoke. The two free chains whirled around to face the area the clone had felt Jiraiya's presence and launched forward. Jiraiya was already on the move, however, easily avoiding the strike. The moment he stopped, however, Naruto's remaining clone dispelled, informing the original of his new position. A small tremor rocked the area before the two chains broke through the ground behind Jiraiya, wrapping around the Sannin. Their hold didn't last long though, as Naruto finally reached his limit and fell to his hands and knees panting. The chains protruding from his back dissolved back into nothingness, releasing the Toad Sage. Slowly fading back into existence as he walked up to his downed godson, Jiraiya placed a seal tag on the boy's back and formed a half-ram seal. The sealing formula on the paper began to glow a pale green as chakra enveloped the blonde's body. The chakra slowly began to seep inside of Naruto's body, rejuvenating his depleted reserves and revitalizing his body. Once the seal had completed its task, it slowly crumbled into dust, leaving no trace of its presence. With his breathing back under control, the formerly exhausted Genin got back to his feet and smiled gratefully at his godfather. Thanks, Jiraiya-sensei, that warrior's rebirth seal is probably the greatest thing you have ever come up with. Now I wouldn't say that, my books are far greater pieces of work, said the self-proclaimed super pervert, earning a blank stare from his companion. Jiraiya looked away and awkwardly cleared his throat. Yes, well, back to business, he began, his demeanor becoming serious once again. You've definitely improved since the last time, your battle sense has become more acute, taijutsu was good, and you've developed your sensing abilities to a high degree for one so young. You've also advanced far in wielding your mother's chakra chains. How long have you been using them in combat? That was actually the first time I've used them in a true battle scenario, said Naruto, causing Jiraiya to raise an eyebrow in moderate surprise. Well, that's surprising, though not unexpected given your Uzumaki heritage. I noticed that maintaining them took quite a lot out of you. You couldn't even use your natural sensing ability because of it. Since we only have a month to train, that will be our main focus, getting you more acquainted to using the chakra chains. If Sarutobi-sensei's suspicions are right, they will prove very helpful in the near future. For now though, I think you have earned the right to wield the first part of your father's legacy. Naruto widened his eyes as Jiraiya bit his right thumb before smearing some on his left palm and forming the 5 signature hand signs of the Sannin. Summoning jutsu, out of the cloud of smoke that formed came a rather large toad with a scroll held by its tongue. At his summoner's bequest, the orange amphibian extended its tongue towards Naruto, releasing the scroll into the boy's arms. Jiraiya smiled as he watched his godson gently place the scroll on the ground and slowly unravel it. It is time you became the newest summoner of the Toad Clan. Slowly, almost reverently, Naruto signed his name in blood in the space next to where his father had signed the contract. Naruto Namikaze, the sight of his birth name alongside his father's brought a smile to the blonde's face, along with a fiery passion. I promise I'll make you proud, Dad, you and Mom both. Returning the scroll to its guardian, Naruto sped through the 5 necessary seals and slammed his right hand on the ground, using the blood left on his thumb as the sacrifice, summoning jutsu. Small cloud of smoke formed underneath Naruto's hand, which cleared to reveal a small orange toad with purple marking around his eyes, mouth, and stomach, wearing a dark blue vest. Yo, said the toad with a small wave, vaguely reminiscent of a certain cycloptic Chunin. Are you the one that summoned me? Yeah, my name's Naruto Namikaze, what's yours? Name's Gamakichi, said the now identified toad, Namikaze. I know I've heard that name before, but where? He mumbled out loud, rubbing his chin with his webbed hand. Perhaps from your father. Naruto and Gamakichi turned to see Jiraiya sitting on top of the larger toad's head. Naruto here is the son of your father's previous summoner, Minato Namikaze. He's just signed the toad contract and it seems he's already found his summon partner. The sons of the Yellow Flash and the Toad Boss fighting alongside one another, quite poetic if you ask me. Oh yeah, Pops is always talking about that guy, saying how he was the greatest summoner our clan has ever had. Jiraiya fell off of Gama's head, painfully face planting into the rocky ground. The young toad and the new summoner ignored the man's antics, instead continuing with their conversation. Well, Naruto, I guess we're partners now. I'd be happy to fight alongside ya. I'd be honored to have you as my partner. But, given your size, there doesn't seem like much you could do to help me out battle-wise, no offense. None taken, waved off Gamakichi. We toads grow at a faster rate than you humans, so I won't stay this small for long. Give me a few years and I'll probably be bigger than most buildings, then we can really kick some butt together. Chuckling slightly, Naruto held out his fist towards his new partner. I look forward to it, partner. Returning a toad's equivalent to a smile, Gamakichi raised his own fist and bumped it with Naruto's. I'll be sure to summon you later on so we can talk some more, but for now, I had best get back to my training. Catch you later, Gamakichi. See ya, bro. With that, the young toad disappeared in the same manner he arrived. Gama gave a nod of respect to his clan's new summoner before returning to his home as well. Rising to his full height, Naruto smirked as the faces of his parents appeared in his mind's eye. Let the training begin. Training ground 7-10 days later. Standing before the two men assisting in their training, the fifth-generation members of Team 7 mentally prepared themselves for whatever exercise the two had in store for them. For the past week and a half, every time the three of them were together, Kakashi and Jiraiya would have them run exercises and scenarios that pushed their teamwork to the limit. The two senior shinobi had even used situations from their own experiences in the field as a means to train the three genin. The Sannin's battle with Hanzo the Salamander was one such example. Jiraiya had gone over, in depth, the details of the fight with them before having the three replicated with Kakashi as the opponent. Though the man never revealed it, the true reason he had chosen that specific battle was to ensure his godson and the boys' teammates never made the same mistake he, Tsunade, and Orochimaru made in their youth. And it was to that same end that Kakashi decided to use the mission that led to his best friend's death as their next exercise. Today we'll be doing another field simulation drill, began the copynin. This particular scenario is one that I encountered on my first official mission as a Jounin, and is at the heart of what I consider my greatest failure. Though he fought back the cruel memories of that time, his students could easily see that their sensei still bore the scars of the memory on his heart. Now, he said after forcing the memories away, this situation is unfortunately quite a common one in the field. One of your squad mates has been taken captive, you have little information in regards to where they have been taken, and even less on your possible opposition. For the sake of authenticity, I have enlisted some help for this exercise. You will be on the clock for this one. Those who are not taken captive will have 1 hour to rescue their teammate. If you don't, it will mean you have failed the mission and your teammate is dead. Good luck. Kakashi and Jiraiya both flashed the genin a smirk before disappearing in a swirl of leaves and cloud of smoke respectively. No sooner had the two infamous shinobi disappeared, than did Naruto notice a distinct sizzling noise from behind. An alarmed glance over his shoulder revealed a paper bomb behind them, only a few seconds away from detonating. Move, he screamed. Sasuke and Sakura were quick to follow his lead, jumping away just as the explosion enveloped their previous position. They weren't given a chance to rest though, as multiple flashes went off around their feet. Blinded by the sudden light, Naruto and Sasuke could do nothing as Sakura's scream reached their ears before it was abruptly cut off. Recovering from their temporary blindness, the two clan heirs took a moment to assess the situation. The hole in the ground between them revealed that Sakura had indeed been captured, and the method used to do so. A shared glance had the two nodding before Sasuke activated his Sharingan, and began scanning the area for any traces of lingering chakra signatures. Naruto closed his eyes in concentration, focusing all his awareness on his sensory abilities, knowing that Sasuke would be able to cover him if someone attacked. Damn it, the blonde cursed after several moments of concentration, they must be outside of my range, I can't pick up anything. Neither can I, grunted his black-haired teammate, whoever Kakashi-sensei brought in to help, they know how to cover their tracks, both physical and chakra-wise. What now? We don't have any idea where they took her, we're basically flying blind right now. I know, and splitting up is out of the question at this point. We do that, we give them an opening to take us both out. Then what do you suggest? Well, we have one clue, this hole they left, said Naruto, kneeling down next to the earthly blemish. This wasn't made by a person who was experienced with earth jutsu, they would have been able to seal it up without a second thought. Which means that we're dealing with someone who is either inexperienced with earth manipulation, or they tunneled in and weren't capable of sealing the hole, finished Sasuke, his Sharingan taking in every detail. down to the littlest piece of dirt. Damn it, still nothing. They didn't leave any evidence behind. Maybe they didn't leave any on the surface, but what about underground? In the tunnel itself, leaning over the opening, taking care to keep his head out of the way of any possible traps, Naruto focused chakra to his eyes, trying to pierce the darkness inside. For that, we'd need the Byakugan, which last I checked, neither of us do. Maybe not. Sitting back up, Naruto placed his right hand on the ground next to the opening, his eyes slipping closed again. During my training with Jiraiya-sensei, he's been helping me improve my control over my chakra chains and honing my sensing abilities. I've only tried it a few times, but I've been working on replicating the Night Aim's method of sensing everything around him by just placing his fingers on the ground. With any luck, I can at least figure out which way the tunnel goes. Thanks to his Sharingan, Sasuke was able to watch as his teammate's chakra pulsed into the earth beneath his hand, before slowly returning to him. I've got it, it's fuzzy, but I know the general direction the tunnel came from. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go get Sakura, and take care of these guys, said Sasuke. My thoughts exactly, forming his signature hand seal. For more Narutos appeared in the training ground, my clones will scout the area around us while we follow the tunnel. Let's move. The six figures blurred away into the forest around them, on the hunt for their teammate and her kidnappers. With Sakura. Sakura groaned as consciousness returned to her, only for it to turn into a muffled gasp once she realized she was no longer in her team's training grounds. In fact, she wasn't even on the ground at all. She was suspended in the air, hanging from the limb of one of the trees that gave Konoha its name, her arms and wrists bound in wire. A quick glance down revealed her ankles were also bound tightly, leaving her with very little range of movement. Damn it, when I get my hands on Kakashi-sensei, he's gonna regret this one. Somewhere deep in the forest, observing the exercise from the shadows, said Scarecrow felt a chill run down his spine, a sense of impending doom washing over him for a moment. Thoughts of retribution against her sensei were put on hold when Sakura noticed a flash of sun-kissed blonde hair leaping through the trees. Shouting for her teammate was utterly useless, courtesy of the seal-covered paper pressed over her mouth. They really are giving us too little credit, thought the pinkette as she swung her legs up, sticking her feet to the branch above her with chakra. A few shakes of her body helped gravity do its job, pulling the kunai in her holster out and letting it begin to fall to the ground. The blade would never reach the ground though, as Sakura cut the flow of chakra to her feet long enough for her legs to swing back down, her chakra flowing once again to catch the kunai with the soles of her boots. Using her momentum, Sakura swung her feet forward, releasing her chakra's hold on the kunai and letting it fly to where Naruto was going to jump next. The blonde looked up in mild surprise, obviously. Feeling the kunai approaching, but making no move to avoid it. For a split second, Sakura's body tensed, believing she might have killed him on accident, only to sag in relief when he turned into a cloud of smoke, revealing him to be a clone instead. Thank Kami, that almost gave me a heart attack, she thought as the smoke slowly dispersed, but then something struck her, something she didn't notice when she first woke. Where were her captors? Why would they go through the hassle of taking her, if they weren't going to keep her under watch to make sure she didn't try and escape? And why leave her with all of her weapons? Either the people Kakashi brought in were seriously underestimating them, or they wanted Naruto and Sasuke to find her, so they could ambush them. With Naruto and Sasuke. The blonde Jinchuriki suddenly stopped on a branch as memories from one of his clones returned to him. Found her, he said, turning to Sasuke, who had stopped on a branch above him. She's 50 yards west of us. They must have planned on us following the tunnel and used it as a decoy. Whoever these guys are, they're good. We can't afford to let our guard down. Yeah, with this level of planning, there's probably a nasty surprise waiting for us too. The Uchiha's crimson Sharingan eyes met Naruto's deep sapphire blue, a small smirk playing at the corner of his lips. What do you think we should do? One of Naruto's infamous foxy smirks slowly spread across his face. We spring the trap, of course. Sharing one last smirk, the two Genins set off through the forest, intent on rescuing their pink-haired teammate. Unknown to the two Genin, they were not alone. Above them, safely out of sight of Sasuke's Sharingan, and hidden from Naruto's sensing abilities, was Reito Namishi, Konoha's most prominent assassin. He and his two teammates had been asked by Kakashi to assist in this particular exercise. At first they had all been a little hesitant to help, believing that it was overkill to have 3 Tokubetsu Jonin going up against 3 Genin, above average Genin, but Genin nonetheless. Though in the end, the chance to see what the newest generation of Team 7 was capable of won out and they agreed to help with the exercise. Looks like one of Uzumaki's clone found Haruno. I guess it's about time for us to make an appearance. With a smirk on his scared face, Reito kicked off to meet up with his companions, easily evading the notice of the 2 Genin. It was a few minutes later that the 2 Genin reached the place where Naruto's clone had been dispelled. They easily spotted Sakura's unique shade of pink hair through a gap between some branches, but before they could move to free her, a flock of crows surrounded them, preventing them from moving. "Sasuke, what is this?" called Naruto over the sound of hundreds of flapping wings. Sasuke's Sharingan shined as they darted all around, trying to ascertain the cause of their current predicament. It quickly became apparent that they were not under the effects of a genjutsu, but that the crows were physical constructs of chakra, similar to Naruto's shadow clones. He relayed that information to the blonde, knowing he was more experienced and knowledgeable when it came to matters involving this kind of chakra. "If they're like my shadow clones, then a single blow is all it should take to get rid of them," Naruto thought as he began forming hand seals. "Sasuke, give me some fire. With a big enough attack, we should be able to eliminate all of them at once." The black-haired youth was already forming seals before Naruto had even finished. Finishing his own chain of seals, Naruto inhaled a large breath, before expelling it in a concentrated stream, Futon Stream. Katan, Great Fireball Jutsu, the combination they had used against Orochimaru, surged forward, consuming the swarm of birds. Unfortunately, the crows did not dispel as Naruto had hoped. Instead, for everyone that was destroyed, another 2 took its place. Canceling their respective techniques before they completely overwhelmed themselves accidentally, Naruto and Sasuke abandoned all pretense of dealing with the crows and instead focused their efforts in freeing Sakura. Pair of kunai sliced through the air, the 2 males of Team 7 barely managing to throw the lethal weapons before the crows swarmed them once more. Their attempt was for naught, however, as the sound of metal hitting metal reached them over the sound of flapping wings. Thanks to his Sharingan, Sasuke was able to catch a glimpse of the 2 Senbon that had been used to intercept their kunai. Sadly for the Uchiha, that momentary lapse of awareness was all the opening their assailants needed to strike. "Sasuke, look out," called Naruto, having sensed the sudden appearance of a foreign chakra behind his teammate. Sasuke didn't even bother sparing a glance, simply leaping away from the branch he stood on to avoid whatever threat was there. Not a moment after the Blasket's feet had left their perch, then did a flash of steel appear, cutting a small gash along the back of the Uchiha's one-piece suit. Just as quickly as the attack had begun, it was over, the crows fading from existence, the unknown swordsman's presence fading with them. Never once to stay idle for long, Naruto and Sasuke both leapt towards Sakura, kunai out and their senses alert. With one last leap, the 2 Genin reared back their knives to free the pinkette, only to receive twin kicks that sent them back into the treetops. Reito smirked as he began to fall back to earth, only for his eyes to widen as he sensed movement above him. He had just enough time to look up and see a gloved hand, before said hand sent him careening downwards with a powerful punch. A blonde and black blur shot out of the trees just after the swordsman had been hit, delivering their own blows that accelerated Reito's descent. "Damn, those 3 are way better than Kakashi let on. He's gonna owe me big time for this," Reito thought as he crashed through a few branches before impacting the ground. "Fuck, that hurt. Ganma, Aoba, you guys better watch yourselves." Short distance away, Reito's 2 teammates watched with wide eyes as their friend was taken out of the fight so quickly. They had seen another Naruto come from behind and free the Haruno girl, but hadn't been fast enough to take action. Damn, to think they could take down Reito so quickly. Those 3 are gonna be one hell of a force to be reckoned with in a few years. "Yeah, and we have to fight them," said Ganma with a sigh, sticking another senbon in his mouth. Aoba silently agreed with him, but tried to keep a more positive attitude. "Speaking of, when should we make our next move?" "Don't know, how about?" Ganma started, before he was cut off by another voice from behind. Now, the 2 Tokubetsu Jonin whirled around to see a flash of blonde hair, before the person disappeared in a cloud of smoke. No sooner had the smoke cleared, than were the 3 members of Team 7 upon the 2 shinobi. Naruto led the assault with a wide swing of his katana, forcing the 2 apart and into the clutches of his teammates. Sakura threw a right hook that Gunma just barely managed to dodge by leaning his head to the side. Not letting up in her attack, the pink-haired medic in training used her momentum to spin in midair and rise her leg into a spin kick. Having no other choice, the Senbon-chewing shinobi braced his left arm with his right and blocked the kick. That proved to be a huge mistake as he was immediately blasted back by the strength of the blow. What the hell? Kakashi didn't say anything about her having Herculean strength. That bastard is seriously gonna owe us after this. Aoba wasn't faring any better than Ganma, as he was forced to parry the Uchiha's kunai with one of his own. After another failed attempt to strike his opponent, Sasuke jumped back slightly and unleashed a swarm of small fireballs at the Tokubetsu Jounin. Just as Aoba raised his hands to perform a counter, an invisible force hit him in his jaw, disorienting him, allowing the swarm of fireballs to hit their mark and launch Aoba across the treetops. Their flights would be short-lived as both teammates collided in midair. Naruto chose that moment to act, throwing 2 seal tags at the tangled mass of limbs. One of the tags attached itself to Aoba's leg, while the other landed on Ganma's arm. Forming the snake seal, Naruto activated the seal on each tag, causing them to glow a faint blue. Multiple strands of chakra sprouted from the seals, wrapping around the 2 Tokubetsu Jounin. Alright, that's enough, Kakashi's voice rang out through the forest as he and Jiraiya appeared on a branch a few feet away, a bruised Rado, slung over the latter's shoulder. Excellent work, team. Taking down 3 fully trained Tokubetsu Jounin is no small feat, even if they weren't fighting at the fullest extent of their capabilities. Now, Naruto, would you please release those 2 from your seal? That position can't be comfortable. You got that right, it's not, grumbled Ganma from his position on the tree branch. Currently, he and Aoba were being held together in an awkward clump of limbs. The 3 genin wore matching smirks as Naruto performed the counter-seal, freeing the bound men. Alright, now I believe Jiraiya-sama has another exercise for you guys to work on. In the meantime, I'm going to take these guys to get checked out at the hospital. Johnny, said Kakashi, finishing with his patented eye smile before disappearing in a cloud of smoke, along with the 3 battered Jounin. Naruto and his teammates turned to the blonde's godfather, only to be forced to leap away as a barrage of white needles descended upon them. What the hell, Arrow Sennin? What was that? Shouted Naruto as he landed on the trunk of a nearby tree. Jiraiya's hair returned to its normal state as he cancelled his needle hell technique. This is what today's exercise was truly about, seeing how you deal with the unexpected. Having a teammate. Kidnapped is only one situation that falls into that category, being ambushed is another. So prepare yourselves, because I'm your next opponent. The 3 genin widened their eyes as Jiraiya formed the seal of the tiger and took in a deep breath, before unleashing a powerful stream of fire. They each shared one thought, as they braced themselves for the fight ahead, oh shit. Groaning for what felt like the 100th time, Naruto continued to trudge his way through the streets of Konoha. Jiraiya hadn't been lax in his assault of the 3 genin, and all of them would likely feel the effects of that exercise for a while. But despite his body's protests, the blonde had dragged himself halfway across the village for a reason. It was time to get some answers to the questions that had been bugging him since the preliminaries. He had intended to get those answers sooner, but Kakashi and Jiraiya had swept them up with training almost as soon as the prelims had finished. After a few more minutes of walking, Naruto finally reached his destination, Yamanaka Flowers. Walking in, he was met with the welcoming fragrance of fresh flowers and a broad-shouldered man with a long blonde ponytail behind the counter. The man, who could only be Ino's father, offered him a kind smile. Welcome to Yamanaka Flowers, how may I help you, young man? Yamanaka-sama, I presume, asked Naruto, walking up to the counter. He knew that despite his kind attitude, Inoichi Yamanaka was not someone to be on the bad side of. There was a reason the man was second in command of the TNI division. You presume correctly, the man said, his smile never wavering. I am indeed Inoichi Yamanaka, and I must say, it's a pleasure to finally make your acquaintance, Uzumaki-san. Please, just Naruto is fine. I've never really been one for formalities anyway, said the blonde, not at all surprised that the man knew who he was. Hell, he would have been more surprised if he didn't know him. Inoichi smiled that much wider at the young man's humble attitude, a trait he shared with his late father. In that case, you may call me Inoichi. Now, what can I do for you, Naruto-san? Actually, I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions about something. Ah, I take it this has to do with the way yours and Ino's chakra reacted to each other during the preliminaries, said the Yamanaka head with a knowing look. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the man's intuitive response, getting a chuckle in response. Are you really so surprised, Naruto-san? After all, my daughter isn't known for keeping things secret for long, especially from me. Getting out from behind the counter, Inoichi moved to the front door and placed a closed sign on it. Turning back to face his guest, he motioned for the blonde to follow him as he moved to the curtained-off doorway behind the counter. Now, it's almost time for dinner. Why don't you join us and we can discuss this over a meal? So long as it's no trouble, I would be honored to join you and your family for dinner, said Naruto with a small bow of his head. Waving off the young man's concerns, Inoichi continued down the hall with Naruto in tow. Nonsense, it's no trouble at all. Finally reaching the end of the hall, the older blonde slid open a door and motioned Naruto inside. Unlike a majority of the clans within Konoha, the Yamanaka were a relatively small one by comparison. With only a dozen or so serving as active ninja, they were one of the few clans that had truly embraced the relative peace and begun the transition into normal civilian life. Because of that, they no longer saw the need for a large, defendable compound and had instead spread out across Konoha to live in normal houses and apartments. As the main family, Inoichi had kept his family rooted in the place where the Yamanaka compound had once stood. Since they had no use for all the extra space, Inoichi had sold the remaining land of the compound and used the funds to build an addition onto his family's home. The addition now served as the flower store his family tended to. As such, the sight that greeted the young genin reflected that more modest lifestyle. The living room was well furnished, but tastefully done, so as not to appear overbearing to any guests. A plush-looking couch and matching armchairs were sat around a dark-stained coffee table. Multiple family pictures and heirlooms were placed around the room, giving the place a comfortable and inviting atmosphere. Please, Naruto, make yourself comfortable. I'll call Ino down and then we can move to the dining room. With that, Inoichi moved to the stairs across the room and shouted, Ino, come down. It's time for dinner and we have a guest tonight. Coming, Daddy, and who? Naruto? Ino exclaimed as she came down the stairs, stopping in surprise when she saw her fellow blonde genin standing in the middle of her family's home. What are you doing here, Naruto? Offering the girl a charming smile, Naruto inclined his head towards a smirking Inoichi. I actually came here to speak with your father about what happened during the preliminaries. He thought it would be best if we all talked it over together. Yes, now, why don't we move to the dining room? I'm sure your mother has dinner already laid out. The Yamanaka head led the two younger blondes through another hall and slid open the door leading to the dining room. Unlike the living room, the dining room was done in a traditional Japanese style, a low-set, hardwood table, with 6 white cushions set around it. The table was filled with numerous dishes and platters, each loaded with traditionally prepared food, ranging from beef, chicken, and an assortment of vegetables. Blonde woman chose that moment to walk in through a doorway on the far side of the room. Naruto was almost forced to do a double take at the uncanny resemblance between mother and daughter. Wearing simple civilian-style clothing, Ino's mother possessed the same beautiful traits that her daughter did: long, flowing platinum blonde hair and bright, expressive blue eyes. If her mother was anything to go by, Ino would grow from a beautiful young woman into a ravishing beauty in a matter of years. Oh, she said when she noticed the three, Inoichi, you didn't tell me we were hosting a guest. Inoichi walked over and kissed her temple, last-minute invite dear. He came to ask me a couple questions and I felt this conversation would be better over a meal. Well, in that case, let's eat, shall we, she said with a smile. With that, everyone moved to one of the cushions, kneeling comfortably on the plush material. Being respectful of his hosts, Naruto left his shinobi gear near the wall before taking the spot next to Ino. Once everyone was situated, they each placed their hands together in prayer. Itadakimasu, they said in unison before picking up their chopsticks and digging into the meal. Naruto was pleasantly surprised when he saw Ino pick up some chicken and begin eating. With all the bragging she and Sakura used to do during the academy about how their diets were going, he didn't think she would touch any meat at all. Few more minutes passed as they ate in companionable silence before Inoichi decided to get down to business. So Naruto, what is it that you'd like to know? Ino has already filled me in on what happened, but to be honest, I'm not sure I'll be able to answer all the questions you may have. Don't worry, Inoichi-sama, I never assumed that you would be able to answer all of the questions surrounding our situation, but any help you can give would be appreciated. Inoichi smiled slightly again. Naruto was far more intelligent than he first thought. Very well, then ask away. Naruto glanced at Ino, and the two shared a nod, before refocusing on Ino's father. Well, I suppose my first question would be about how we were able to speak to one another telepathically. It is a technique unique to your clan, and I'm positive Ino did not intentionally initiate the technique herself. Your assumptions are sound, Naruto. Ino told me she did not initiate the technique on her own, so I have been trying to answer that very question myself. Though it is still conjecture, I do have a theory on the matter. Both teens perked up, prompting Inoichi to continue. Well, to begin, I'll explain a little more about our clan's telepathy. You see, members of the Yamanaka clan are able to communicate telepathically with one another with little difficulty, even without the assistance of our clan's mind-body transmission jutsu. Because of our mastery of mind-related abilities, it is almost second nature for a Yamanaka to extend their sense of self beyond their physical being. This, along with our extremely adaptable chakra, is what allows us to connect our chakra to other clan members, and by extension communicate mentally with them. Okay, began Ino, still looking perplexed, but how does that help explain how Naruto and I were able to communicate telepathically, Daddy? Inoichi set his chopsticks down and folded his hands on the table. As I said, Ino, our clan's chakra is incredibly adaptable. It has to be for our jutsu to be truly effective. My theory is that your naturally adaptable chakra reacted to Naruto's own potent chakra and created a connection between the two of you, allowing you to speak to one another mentally. Ino slowly nodded to her father's theory, though it was obvious she was struggling to truly understand everything. Beside her, Naruto was silent as he contemplated Inoichi's theory. Unlike his fellow blonde genin, Naruto has a much firmer grasp of the principles of chakra and could make more sense of things such as this. But even then, his knowledge on the mysteries and principles of chakra was far from vast. He would need to consult with Jiraiya-sensei or Hokage Jiji at some point to see if they might be able to help. After a few moments of silence, while he watched the two young genin process what he had told them, Inoichi spoke up again. As I said, it's only a theory, but that is the most likely cause that I can think of. Now then, did you have any other questions for me? I have one, stated Ino, bringing everyone's attention to her. Do you remember what I told you about what happened right before I heard Naruto's voice in my head, Daddy? You mean when you suddenly felt a surge of energy and your chakra reserve spiked? Yeah, do you have any idea how that could have happened? I'm sorry to say, sweetie, but I have no idea, admitted the Yamanaka patriarch as he shook his head no. Ino's brow just creased further as she looked back down at her plate, obviously disappointed at not getting an answer. Seeing this, Naruto gently nudged his fellow blonde to get her attention. Hey, don't look so down, Ino. If you want, I can ask my sensei or even the Hokage about that for you. Ino's demeanor did a complete reversal as she beamed a bright smile at Naruto. Really? You'd do that for me, Naruto? Sure, I was already planning on talking to them about this whole situation anyway to get their opinion on the matter. Throwing another question in shouldn't be that hard. He finished with his patented foxy smirk, drawing a near-invisible blush from Ino. Ino's reaction, however, didn't go unnoticed by her parents, who shared a knowing smile, but quickly covering it up by focusing on their dinner. Conversation drifted to more casual topics for the remainder of the meal, allowing everyone to learn a little more about each other as the evening wore on. After everyone had finished, Ino rose and began gathering all of the dirty dishes to be washed. Naruto, never one to sit idle, offered to help, and began gathering the rest of dishes on the table. When Ino's mother, Misaki, tried to tell him that he should relax, as he was their guest, he politely replied that it was the least he could do to repay them for allowing him to eat with their family. So it was 10 minutes later, after helping Ino with the dishes, that saw Naruto bidding the Yamanaka family a good night, after thanking them once again for the meal. Ino offered to walk him out, so now the two blondes found themselves standing outside the flower shop, the stars just beginning to shine in the sky. Well, it may not be much, but at least now we have solid theory about what happened during the preliminaries, said Naruto as he turned to face his fellow genin. Yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait a little longer before we have all the answers to our questions. Ino's gaze was downcast, obviously disappointed that they hadn't been able to get any more than a theory from her father. Reaching out, Naruto placed a comforting hand on Ino's shoulder, causing her to look up and meet his sapphire blue eyes. Once again an almost unnoticeable blush spread across her fair cheeks, the waning light of dusk preventing Naruto from seeing it. Hey, don't worry Ino, we'll figure this all out. So we didn't get all the answers at once, that just means that what we have is something special. Besides, I'm still planning on talking to my sensei and Hokage Gigi. I'm sure they'll have a lot more theories and ideas about this. Offering the spiky-haired blonde a grateful smile, she nodded in agreement. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Neither seemed to notice Ino's addition of the affectionate suffix to Naruto's name. Well, I guess I'll see you in a few more weeks at the finals. Good night, Naruto-kun. Night, Ino. Flashing her one last smirk and a small wave, Naruto left in the direction of his apartment, leaving the unknowing Yamanaka heiress to the tender mercies of the teasing she would soon endure from her parents. Kanahagakure Stadium Day of Chunin Exam Finals. Konoha was abuzz with energy as the event that many had been greatly anticipating was finally upon them. From all corners of the land, civilians, nobles and even daimyos flocked to the stadium in the heart of Konoha's Great Wall to view the finals of this year's biannual Chunin exams. In the heart of the stadium, the 10 prospective Chunin candidates stood at attention as they waited for the first match to begin. Just by looking at the field everyone could tell that this finals tournament was going to be one to remember. The heirs and heiress of 4 of Konoha's most prominent clans, the prodigy of the Hyuga, the last loyal Uchiha and the son of the Yondaime Kazekage. Unknown to the public, the son of the Yondaime Hokage had his eyes closed and was preparing himself for the fights to come. He and his teammates had been informed of the imminent threat posed to the village, though thanks to their encounter with Orochimaru, it didn't come as a total surprise to the three. Since they would be the only ones aware of the threat, they had been tasked with rallying their fellow genin to help any way they could if and when Orochimaru made his move. However, the thing that worried Naruto most was his fellow Jinchuriki. He may not have had concrete proof that Gaara was indeed a Jinchuriki, but he instinctually knew it to be true. The redhead was unstable, that was obvious, and the palpable bloodlust radiating off of him at all times made it obvious he had absolutely no problems killing. Naruto hoped beyond hope that whatever Orochimaru had planned didn't occur during Gaara's match, but considering the redhead's opponent, that hope was meaningless. That was why he had given himself a self-appointed mission. If Gaara tried to capitalize on the chance to kill those who had eluded him thus far, he would subdue his fellow Jinchuriki, whatever it took. Kaga Box. Hiruzen Sarutobi sat in the top box above the stadium, allowing him a perfect and unobstructed view of the field. As he gazed over the field, he was filled with an immense sense of pride at the fact that all but one of the competitors was a genin of Konoha. He knew from his many years as Hokage that this kind of showing would catch the interest of many prospective clients, and bring a lot of missions to Konoha. But most of all, he was proud that Naruto, his surrogate grandson, was among the finalists. Jiraiya and Kakashi had kept him apprised of Team 7's growth and training over the course of the month-long break, and he was greatly impressed. When he had first created Team 7 several months ago, he knew that the team had a great amount of potential, and with guidance from 2 world-class shinobi, they were starting to grow into that potential. His thoughts were halted by the arrival of the Kazekage and his guards. Rising from his seat, he turned to greet his fellow Kage, a welcome Kazekage Dano. I trust the trip from Sunagakure was not too tiring for you? Not at all, Hokage Dano, spoke the veiled Kage. In fact, it's probably just as well that these exams are being held here in Konoha. It is not likely you could have handled the trip to Suna at your age. Kind, hearty chuckle hid the veteran shinobi's ire at the wind shadow's insinuation quite well, a serene smile completing the disguise. Come now, there is still quite a bit of life left in these old bones of mine. In fact, I plan on being around for a few more years yet. Turning to face the arena again while the Kazekage took his seat, the Sandaime walked up the edge of the box. Well now, what say we begin? Indeed, drawled the green-robed shinobi, this year's exams should prove to be quite memorable. Welcome everyone to Konohagure no Sato Chunin in selection exam. Sarutobi's chakra-enhanced voice easily carried over the entire stadium, eliciting a round of cheering from the stands. This year we are proud to have 10 very promising candidates. These young genin have fought their way through the preliminaries and earned their right to display their skills here today. So without further ado, let the final tournament begin. As the stands once more dissolved into cheers, Ganma, having been appointed in place of Hei-8, turned to the assembled genin. Alright guys, the environment may be different, but the rules are the same as in the prelims. There are no rules, you fight until death or one of you concedes defeat. If I determine the fight is over though, I will step in and declare a winner, understand? A round of nods answered him, prompting him to remove a sheet of paper from his pocket. Now just to remind you who you will be fighting, take another look at the matchups. First match, Naruto Uzumaki vs Shino Aburame. Second match, Rock Lee vs Niji Hyuga. Third match, Sakura Haruno vs Ino Yamanaka. Fourth match, Shikamaru Nara vs Kiba Inuzuka. Fifth match, Sasuke Uchiha vs Gaara no Sabaku. The first match is between Naruto Uzumaki and Shino Aburame. You two stay. Everyone else please move to the competitors box. As the remaining 8 genin filed out of the arena, the remaining members of the Konoha 12 and their senseis were eager to see how their friends and comrades would fare in their matches. Well Kakashi, it looks like your boy is at a disadvantage, said Kurenai, from her place next to Asuma. Shino's abilities will neutralize any techniques Naruto might have. He is the worst opponent your boy could have gotten. Standing in the aisle between the rows of seats, little orange book nowhere to be found, Kakashi simply gave the red-eyed beauty an eye smile. Ma, don't write Naruto off so easily Kurenai. There is a reason he is known as the most unpredictable ninja in the village. By the time this match is over, you will understand exactly why he was given that moniker. In the arena. Are you both ready? The two genin silently nodded, never once breaking eye contact. Alright, in that case, the first match, Naruto Uzumaki vs Shino Aburame. Hajime, said Ganma before he retreated to a safe distance, knowing firsthand how Naruto preferred to fight. For a solid minute, neither combatant moved from their position, instead choosing to continue their stare down. That minute felt like an eternity to the onlookers though, and many of them were starting to get annoyed at the lack of action. Just as tension was starting to reach its peak, Naruto broke it. You can call back your beetles Shino, if they try and eat any more of my chakra they will likely perish. I suppose you are right, Naruto-san. As he said this, the Aburame heir raised his right hand and pointed it towards the blonde Jinchuriki. No less than 10 small Kakashi flew from Naruto to Shino's outstretched hand. Once the insects had disappeared into the sleeve of his jacket, Shino spoke again. Thank you for loosening it so that I could recall my insects, but could you please remove the seal on my leg? Naruto smirked and raised his hand to form a half-ram seal, releasing a pulse of chakra. Immediately, a small seal tag, the same shade of brown as Shino's pants, crumbled into dust. The crowd was silent after the short exchange. Many of the civilians and visiting nobles could not believe that the two genin had made such preparations in the short amount of time before the match began. Their ninja counterparts showed surprise as well, but for a different reason. What surprised them was that the two had the foresight to make such plans and execute them so efficiently. Not even some Chunin could claim to have that level of skill, a fact that was not lost on the judges or the Hokage. Well, said Naruto, bringing attention back to the matter at hand, now that the initial exchange is over, what do you say we really get this fight started? Very well, with that, the two pushed off and clashed in midair, kunai grinding together. Jumping away, Naruto brought his left arm around and loosed 3 shuriken at the Aburame. Shino easily deflected the lethal stars, but was forced to turn his body to the side to avoid the kunai that followed. Capitalizing on his new position, Shino extended his left arm and unleashed a condensed swarm of Kakashi at his blonde opponent. The swarm would never reach its intended target as a blast of wind dispersed the swarm, but it had served its purpose. Shino was nowhere to be found in the arena, immediately setting Naruto on edge. Deciding it best to go on the defensive, the blonde Jinchuriki clapped his hands together and closed his eyes in concentration, absently noting that what he was about to do would likely cause a few heart attacks. Just as he had done during his training with Jiraiya, 10 golden chakra chains erupted from his back, 8 forming a defensive barrier and the remaining 2 poised to strike. True to Naruto's prediction, the appearance of his chains did indeed cause a few heart attacks. His fellow genin, minus his team, were stunned to see such a technique from the blonde, but quickly accepted it as something else he had hidden. The older generation, however, especially those that had a connection to Naruto's parents, had a much more pronounced reaction. Sarutobi couldn't contain his surprise and delight at the appearance of the chains, and it showed on his face. To think you would awaken your Uzumaki blood to such an extent so young. Naruto, you truly are your mother's son. In the stands sectioned off for the clans of Konoha, one ever-stoic clan head felt his pupilless eyes widen. It was a little-known fact that Hayashi Hyuga had been on the same genin team as the Yondaime Hokage. What was even less known was that he had been the best of friends with Minato and Kushina. They often joked about their children falling in love and marrying. The idea of a marriage contract had been discussed, but sadly, fate had intervened before they could go through with their idea. After the death of his friends, Hayashi had locked all of his emotions behind a mask of stoicism. But now, seeing the very same chains that Kushina had once wielded being used by Minato's miniature clone was bringing forth many old memories. Memories of a bond he though forever lost, but maybe, just maybe, a small part of that bond remained, in the form of Minato and Kushina's son. Under the effects of a cloaking genjutsu taught to him by Kurenai, Shino's eyes widened marginally as well as he took in this new development. The chains surrounding Naruto were obviously made of chakra and offered a full degree of protection to the blonde. It was also a perfect method of nullifying all of his clan jutsu, as his Kakachu could only eat so much of Naruto's potent chakra before they inevitably died. That left very few options available to the Aburame heir, but he and his clan were nothing if not resourceful. Before Shino had a chance to put that resourcefulness to use, the 2 chains not forming the barrier around Naruto shot at the cloaked genin. Narrowly avoiding being impaled by the spear-headed constructs, Shino was soon forced onto the defensive by the unrelenting chains. Naruto smirked from behind his barrier as he felt Shino's chakra move to avoid another strike from his chains. His training with Jiraiya during the month-long break had truly paid off. Not only had his control of the chains improved, but he could even utilize some of his other skills at the same time now. Not great, but definitely a marked improvement. Shino had finally dropped the cloaking genjutsu. It was obvious Naruto could detect him, so there was no point in wasting more chakra. Dodging yet another attempt by the chains, the sunglass-wearing genin formed the ram seal to begin his counter. Before he had a chance to complete his technique, another chain broke through the ground behind him and wrapped around his leg. The 2 chains that had been attacking immediately moved and secured his arms, forcing them apart as a kunai was placed against Shino's throat. "Surrender," a cold voice said from behind the bound Aburame. A second Naruto had appeared the moment the chains had secured their target, with a kunai against Shino's jugular vein. An uneasy silence overcame most of the stadium, all of them unnerved by the tone of the blonde's voice. For the visiting nobles and those not originally from Konoha, the way Naruto spoke was a harsh reminder that shinobi, no matter how young, were trained killers. The citizens of Konoha, however, heard something else entirely. They heard the voice of a demon, but for the first time in years, it was not the voice of the Kyuubi. It was a demon of their own making. For as long as any of them could remember, Naruto had always been a happy and go-lucky person. No matter how they treated him or how badly they beat him, the blonde would always smile and act like nothing had ever happened. The civilians of Konoha had always taken that as the Kyuubi mocking them, silently telling them that no matter what they did, they were merely a nuisance to him. But now, for the first time they were seeing that they were wrong. That Naruto's smile and laughter were a mask, and now, they were getting a small glimpse of what was really behind that mask. "Proctor," said Shino, "I forfeit." Ganma nodded and raised his hand to point at Naruto, winner, Naruto Uzumaki. No sooner had the words been spoken than did the chains protruding from the blonde's back dissolve and the Naruto behind Shino disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Despite many still being shaken from glimpsing behind Naruto's mask, they still applauded and showed their appreciation for the match. "That was a good fight, Shino," Naruto said as he walked up and shook hands with his fellow genin. "Yes, though I suspect you were not fighting at your full strength." A foxy smirk answered his statement. I see, I shall have to increase my training to catch up with you. I look forward to sparring with you again sometime. Likewise, said the blonde, as the two genin began making their way up to the competitor's box. In the stands. Kurenai was at a loss for words as the match concluded, while Kakashi simply smirked behind his mask. I told you. Naruto is not one to be underestimated. On the contrary, he is the last person any of us should underestimate. He has kept his true abilities hidden for a very long time, and I'm sure there are even more talents that he has yet to reveal as well. I'd say, said Asuma as he took another drag from his ever-present cigarette. What I'd like to know is what's up with those scrolls on his back. What purpose do they serve? Everyone in their small group turned their attention away from the arena to look at Kakashi, each of them curious about the answer as well. They were disappointed when Kakashi only shrugged, though his reply only increased their curiosity. I honestly have no idea. In all the time since Naruto revealed his true capabilities, I have only ever seen him unseal a small handful of weapons, ranging from shuriken to a katana from the top scroll, but I highly doubt that is the extent of that scroll's contents. He's also never mentioned anything concerning the purpose of the second scroll, so its contents are a complete mystery. The only person who may know what those two scrolls are really for would be Naruto's godfather, and I doubt he'd go around sharing his godson's secrets. Godfather, said a surprised Kiba, but I thought Naruto was an orphan. He is Kiba, but that doesn't mean he has no family remaining, chided Kakashi, leaving most of the genin to ponder over the mystery that was Naruto Uzumaki. Smirking behind his mask, Kakashi turned to watch the next fight. And he's not the only one who will surprise you. Sasuke and Sakura have a few surprises of their own in store. The cycloptic Jonin's smirk widened that much more, eager to see his other two students' action as well.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.